Okay, I lied. It is 9:00. This meeting for the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology is called to order on August 4th at 9 a.m. Let's start off with the roll call for the members present.
Jeanette Benaldi, present.
April Long, Secretary Treasurer.
Neil Hoffman, board member.
Perry Nixdorf, board member. Perry Nixdorf, board member.
Joanna Tran.
Alex Leader.
We also have some staff down in Vegas. If you guys would chime in, please.
Gloria Alexander, Office Manager.
Andrew Helms, Chief Financial Officer.
Jeffrey Green, Chief Investigator.
Monica Bradford, Administrative Assistant.
Gary Landry, Executive Director.
Okay, if everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry, Charlene. Sorry.
Charlene Marsh, Inspector.
Now, if we would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Public for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I have a copy of the mission statement. I do not. Okay. Agenda item number 3. The mission of the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare through education and ensuring only qualified persons are granted licenses to perform cosmetology in the state of Nevada, and that areas where cosmetology services are provided are kept clean, sanitary, and safe. And this is per NRS 644 and NAC 644. At this time, we'd like to open up for any comments from the general public, either here or in Vegas. If there's anybody who'd like to step forward and make a public comment to the board, we'll entertain that now. Anybody down in Vegas? Okay.
One second, Mr. President. I'd like, Ms. Hall, do you want to make a public comment to the board? This would be the time to do that.
Please, if you'd step forward to the microphone.
My name is Melody Jutter from Sparks, Nevada. What I am seeing here, that Nevada is adopting regulations from other states which makes our states more business unfriendly instead of using taxes from states which simplifies, which reduce costs, which ensures compliance. I am concerned by changes which force compliance and enforce workloads upon operators and owners, particularly where those tasks are more appropriately performed by the regulatory agency. I can see a can of worms opening up by the requirement to list the licensee number when advertising. This requirement will surely facilitate and permit ID theft and result in fraudulent use of other people's license number. People who are already using paid advertising are reputable business as a general rule. People who are taking advantage working without licenses are in places like Craigslist. I see no problem to mention in the ad that I'm a licensed operator working in an establishment approved by the state board. People can see my license when they come into my establishment. They can check with the state board online which established or operator is already listed. State board, on the other hand, should be allowed to investigate Craigslist and to allow people to anonymously report information to the state board regarding illegal operations. I would respectfully suggest that state board more aggressively follow up on leads regarding illegal activities. There are salons, for example, openly using unsanitary common files and buffers on every client. This should be addressed. There is the issue of assigning responsibility for violation in the case of an independent operator. The shop owner is the operator. However, sometimes you have a business owner who is not a beauty operator or who might not have no knowledge of all activities, even though signing a paper. For example, in the case where a shop owner is simply the landlord of a multi-purpose business location, there should be a chance to correct the violation by informing the owner of the business. Modern technology permits showing a picture to document and to inform the owner about what the specific violation is. In the case of multiple operators at a given location, the notice of violation should be appropriately distinguished between those conscientious operators who do follow state board regulations and those who are not in compliance. Also, employees hired subsequent to the notice of violation obviously do not deserve to be inappropriately lumped in with those who are responsible for the violation at the time of citation. Public reporting should distinguish between violators and non-violators at a common location. Greater public awareness should be made regarding regulated establishments and non-regulated exempt establishment. For example, on an Indian reservation establishment such as Walmart and Sparks are not subject to the same state regulations as establishments elsewhere. The public should understand the licensure requirement and regulation regarding permitted implement do not apply there. Regulated establishments may be placed at a marketing disadvantage vis-a-vis exempt establishments, especially where the public has not been educated as to why regulations are in place. Corner cutting on cleanliness may enable unsafe cost cutting and price undercutting, so an informed consumer. 2. Shampoo license. This is a prime example of over-specialization. This is not helping the average business, nor does it serve the consumer to have professionals with such limited knowledge and background, and in the long run, it does not benefit the licensee to be so limited. When I started in this business in the 80s, there were only cosmetologists and nail tech licenses. Now there are nail techs, estheticians, hairstylists. They did allow trade school to make more money and generate on oversupply of graduate with newly minted but false sense of experiences just out of school. I went to school for nails. I continued my education getting a full cosmetologist license, being an apprentice, and gained a better expertise and experience at the time when I went to school. What is going to be next? A pedicurist license? A nail sculpture license? 3. Rental options involve several challenges for operators, oversupply and high rent as examples, which results in low income. While we should have the freedom to do what we choose, at the same time, there's a gray area here. But also many lessors dictate what clothes to wear, what hours to work, but refuse to provide a key access to the renter. These things are detrimental to the beauty profession. Inadequate inspections are permitting operators to circumvent the rules. For example, while Credo blades are legal, it is not at all infrequent to find operators who still use them regardless. Salons on reservation, Walmart, had people using them. This in turn costs the ethical operators business, and as an uneducated, risk-tolerant customers will go where they can get this service. We are supposed to be able to do pedicures, not merely manicures on the feet. Alternatively, instead of pretending to ban, why not regulate and inspect? Allow, train, and license people to use Credo blade in a legal manner, but providing a special licensure for Credo blade use. This is just an idea. It's not saying we should change it, but just a principle of things. And in the interim, if someone is not following the procedures, such as using a rusty blade and not changing it after every client, then enforce the regulation strictly with a significant penalty, either suspension of licensure, fine, or whatever it takes to get the attention of willful violators. Thank you.
Could you spell your name for me, please?
Melody Chutter.
Spell it.
Chutter.
Thank you. Okay. Any further comments from the public? All right. Agenda item number 5, consideration and approval for the agenda and its posting. Ms. Bradford, has the agenda been posted in accordance with open meeting law?
It has.
Okay. Any discussion by the board members on the agenda and its posting? Okay. Does any board member wish to pose a motion?
Sorry about that. I move to approve.
White.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second before the board. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, is it at all possible again that the executive director's report could be moved to after the...
Right after we finish with this agenda item, we'll get
Thank
to
you.
that. So I have a motion and a second before the board. Having no further discussion, I'll have that vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Number 6, the consent agenda.
Mr. President, is it possible that we could move the consent agenda to possibly before or around 18, 19, 20?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I would entertain that vote.
I would like Mr. Leader to pull the director's report or something like that, not the entire consent agenda, if that would be okay with him.
Okay, I think
Or
we're
did you- or
a
did you
little
want-
confused. We have two different things going on
Yeah,
here.
I would like a clarification whether you want the entire consent agenda to be moved or whether or not you want to pull something specific from the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Nixdorf. I did want to pull some things from the consent agenda, and that's the year-to-date testing summary. It's about maybe 12 pages in. And then the fiscal year 2014 finance report. It's a single sheet. And I also wanted to take the those were the two items, the finance report and the testing summary year to date.
Both financial reports, financial statement and summary?
It's just this little single sheet. If those could just be pulled out for later.
So if you could word that in the form of a motion.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to pull the 2014 testing summary and the fiscal year 2014 finance report from the consent agenda and move those to item number 18 on the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? Okay, so I'll entertain that vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Right. Does any board member propose a motion to accept the consent agenda with the exclusion of the items that Mr. Leader wanted to pull?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda minus the items that were pulled.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? Okay, I'll have that vote now. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Okay. This time, the board will begin disciplinary hearings and appeals of citations. I'm going to take a few minutes to describe the process for the benefit of licensees who are appearing before us. When you hear your case called, please step forward and take a seat at the table in front of us here. We have a court reporter who will swear in all the witnesses. The court reporter will also attempt to capture everything, so what we need is for everybody to speak each person individually speak at one time so that Leslie can take the time to get everything in for us. The state has the burden of proof, so we will present its case. We will present our case first, and then you'll be given an opportunity to question the witnesses, call any witnesses, and present your case. Okay. Okay. So the first case before us would be the Board of Cosmetology versus Famous Nails. Ms. Bradley.
I don't believe the respondent is present, but perhaps we could call for him. I'm kind of anticipating he won't be here.
Okay.
Mr. Liu is present.
Oh, he is present. Okay, I apologize.
Swear him in.
Yeah. Mr. Green, if you could have him stand up and raise his right hand so we can swear him in. And you probably as well.
Do each of you swear that the testimony you're giving in this matter would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Mr. Liu, I don't know if you have the exhibits there. I'm hoping you do. There should be 4 exhibits. I wondered if they have them there in front of you. Yeah, that's what.
Ms. Bradley, they have been given the exhibits.
Okay, Mr. Liu, so are you looking at those right now? You need to push your microphone maybe to speak.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any objection to the board looking at all 4 of those documents?
I'm not there at that time, and now the first time I see this picture right here.
Yeah. But is it okay if the board looks at them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. President, while the Attorney General is, Deputy Attorney General is passing the documents out, I'd like to let the board know that sitting in front of each board member is a packet that includes an example of what's being sent to each respondent and each complainant and each appellant that appears before the board, where it tells them that they have at their option to bring an interpreter at their expense, an attorney at their expense, and that they're required to speak, hear, and understand the English language. So, just so you know, we're taking steps, preactive or preemptive steps, to make sure that all the licensees are fully aware of their rights and privileges, as well as the requirements when they appear before the board. We're also going to be having that translated into Spanish and Vietnamese to send to all appellants and complainants.
Thank you, Mr. Landry.
So I'm hoping that Mr. Liu and I can actually reach some stipulations in this case, because it's my understanding he's actually already surrendered his license. So, Mr. Liu, have you had a chance to look at the complaint that's Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Okay, so what I was hoping you would do is that you would possibly consider admitting the violations that are listed in that complaint. And then I would ask the board to take the surrender of your license as the penalty for this, essentially. So we would call it like a voluntary surrender in lieu of other discipline. So that's what I was hoping. If you'll agree to the violations and the facts in the complaint, then I'll ask the board to take your surrender as the punishment. Does that make sense? That way there's no fines or anything for you to pay.
I surrender.
Yeah, I know you did surrender, but I just want to know if you admit the facts. So if you look at page 2 of the complaint, there's a list of facts. Because I think they're the same ones that you had before, because I know we were going to do this case in May.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we postpone this case so that the complainant could bring an interpreter with him?
Yes.
Okay, and he still doesn't have one. Okay.
Yes, I admit it.
Okay, so you admit facts 1 through 12 in the complaint?
First time I see it. I was not there at that time, and also with the two picture right here. The inspection gave to me. This first time I see this, and the people work there. I asked them what happened. They say nothing happened, and they say they make story, but I don't know who is right.
Okay. But, I mean, in looking at the pictures, do you agree that the violations did occur? Or that the facts are true? Sorry.
Seem to be right, but they say it's not right. But
okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I just need you to say yes or no if you'll agree to the facts 1 through 12 as being correct. You can say no if you want, and then I'll call a witness, and that's fine. But I just thought since you already surrendered your license, we would try to resolve it kind of by a settlement on the record.
Yes.
Okay, so you do admit those. Now, what about the violations of law? If you see on page 3, there's 3 violations of law there. And the first one says, by reusing single-use items in the cosmetological establishment, respondent has violated NAC 644.430 sub 1 sub I. And the second claim for relief is by reusing single-use items in the cosmetological establishment, respondent has engaged in an unfair, unjust practice, method, or dealing, which is grounds for disciplinary action pursuant to NRS 644.430 sub 1 sub K. And then the third claim, the last one, is by reusing single-use items in the cosmetological establishment, respondent has engaged in gross malpractice, which is grounds for disciplinary action pursuant to NRS 644.430 sub 1 sub C. So do you see those there, and do you admit that the violations, those facts that you agreed to, do constitute those violations?
I'm not agree with this. We get you put picture right here. I see it. Just a picture. They take a picture. They did not use on customer. And just here, just a picture.
Okay. Well, so then we'll go ahead and have a hearing, I guess. Then, I just thought since you surrendered your license, you weren't contesting. But we can have a hearing then if you don't want to agree to those.
I would like to agree to it. But I asked the people who work there, they said they never use this. And the inspection right here have the picture, I think he's right. And the people there, they say, no, it's not right.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe they weren't telling you the truth.
I'm not there at the time, but I don't know who is right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you don't have to admit the violations, but if you want to, you can.
I want to finish this.
Okay. So is that you saying you want to admit then?
No, I want to finish today.
Yeah, it'll be finished today. We'll either just have a full hearing where Mr. Green will testify, or we'll just agree to everything on the record, and then I'll ask them to take the surrender that you've done as the penalty.
Okay, I admit it.
Okay, and based on Mr. Liu's admissions, then I would ask that the board find that the facts and the violations of law as outlined in the complaint and as supported by the exhibits have been proven.
If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain that motion.
Mr. President, based on the respondent verifying the accuracy of the complaint, I make a motion to find that license S13124 did in fact prove the factual allegations of the complaint based on his admission.
1 through 12.
Yes.
And the claims for relief, I believe there's 3 of them.
Did you want that in a separate motion? And
It can be collective, yes.
And so I'll combine that the violations of the law, the 3 claims of relief have been proven.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? All right, I'll have that vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion in lieu of the fact that he's going. Are we going to do the fining now?
Could I do a recommendation first?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Ms. Bradley, if you would, please.
So board members, Mr. Liu did come to the board office last week, I believe, and surrendered his salon license. So I would ask you to take that as his full punishment and not to assess any fines or costs. Frequently in other cases, we'll do a voluntary surrender in lieu of other discipline, and it's a way for a person to resolve a case without having a financial penalty, particularly if they're leaving the industry. So he has surrendered the license. The salon is no longer operating, and so I would ask that you take that as the penalty in full for these violations.
I'd like to make a motion, since he has surrendered his license, that in lieu of that we would waive the $100.
No, I think it's
fine.
Just accept that he surrendered his license.
You're accepting the surrender of his
okay.
license as the punishment for the violations
Right.
of both the finding of facts and the 3 claims for relief.
Great, thank you.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Leader, discussion?
Is the respondent, is he individually licensed? And he,
Not only a salon license, but an individual operator's license of one kind or another? Yeah, but that's not what's under discussion before the board right now. It's just the establishment license. Unfortunately, we can't. That doesn't make a difference.
but does the respondent intend to apply for a new establishment license?
The way it normally works with a voluntary surrender, and thank you for bringing that up, what I'd like to put in the order, if the board approves this, would be that should Mr. Liu want to apply for an establishment license, that staff would deny his license and he would have to come before the board before any establishment license in the future would be issued. That's normally how, for my other clients, when we do these surrenders, that's normally how we do it. So that way they can't just come back. They have to come to you and say, I've learned my lesson. It's been 3 years. Here's what I've done to change.
So, Ms. Booth, if you want to amend your motion for that.
I had a question that, just listening to this, he has a $100 fine?
No, it's substantially more than that, but that's not the discussion before the board. What the discussion before the board is that in lieu of fining or punishing him, he's surrendered his license. And then also the stipulation Ms. Bradley just made.
That he can never get a license again? Is that the stipulation?
You need to come before the
Have to come before the board. Okay.
It's just for an establishment license.
Okay,
Because
for
he
the-
is currently licensed as a manicurist.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that. I would like to amend my motion to include that he would have to come before the board prior to getting another establishment license.
And I will second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Is the salon still open, or is it under someone's name, or how? Because you said that.
It's my understanding he surrendered the license and that the salon's closed.
That is correct. That particular license number and that particular salon can no longer operate under that license. That particular space could be opened by any other manicurist, any other owner in the state, but that Mr. Liu and this particular license no longer exists in the
So
state.
at the time, the salon is closed at this time at that location.
That is correct.
It's been verified.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Okay, having a motion before the board, I'll entertain that vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries.
So Mr. Liu will be. The board will send you an order in the mail, and so you'll have this in writing for your records. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 9 on the agenda, we're looking for...
Agenda item 8.
Sorry, 8. Agenda item 8. We're looking for Mia Bella Salon, Day Spa.
Actually, this matter has been continued. The respondent has requested a continuance, and I don't object to that. So we would ask that it be moved to the November board meeting.
So I'll entertain that motion then.
I'll motion to move Mirabella Day Spa Salon agenda number 8 to the November meeting.
Second.
I'll
Several seconds. Mr. Nixdorf and Ms. Benaldi. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, I did have
leader.
some discussion. There have been several anonymous complaints about there being blood present in the salon. So we're continuing something based on unsanitary conditions. So what's the assurance that public safety is being observed if we're postponing this matter for 3 more months?
Mr. Leader, that's a very good question.
I mean, I can just tell you we're postponing it because the salon recently retained an attorney, and I know the attorney well, and I don't believe that his request for a continuance is to delay things or be unfair.
Not a stall tactic or anything
No.
like that.
So, I don't know that he was retained as soon as he could have been after the last meeting, which is frustrating. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I know that board staff can go in at any time and inspect the salon. I don't know if there's been an inspection since the May meeting or not.
Staff does, in fact, go out and inspect any salon, whether they're on the agenda or not, under the under their normal cycle. And anytime that anything comes up, we would cite again. It doesn't matter if they're under a continuance. We would cite if we see anything that's inappropriate, doesn't follow the state laws.
So are you saying that they haven't seen any blood out there? Our inspectors?
I don't know that in particular. I would have to ask the actual inspector who went there. But we can't. That's not on the agenda at this time.
Yeah, that doesn't pertain to the discussion before the board, so it's appreciated. But I imagine we can instruct staff to perhaps do a spot check or something like that if we're concerned about the public safety. If that answers your question, Mr.
Thank
Leader.
you. That would be my concern.
And Ms. Booth. Okay. Okay. Having a motion before the board, I'll entertain that vote now. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
That's 1 nay, Mr. Leader. That motion carries. Now, agenda item number 9, Von Russell Hair Studio. Okay. Ms. Bradley.
Is anyone here from Von Russell Hair Studio?
Nobody's indicating here, and I don't imagine they'd be in Vegas, so.
Okay. I'd like to call Ms. Bradford briefly, just regarding the service of the citation letter, appeal letter.
Prior to her being called, could she be sworn in?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could stand, please, Ms. Bradford. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Bradford, did you send the letter dated June 20th, 2014 to Von Russell Hair Studio regarding today's citation appeal?
Yes, I did. I sent it both ways via registered mail and U.S. regular mail.
Okay. And the address that you mailed it to, is that the address that's on file for that establishment in the board records?
It is.
Thank you. Did you hear anything from Von Russell's Hair Studio regarding a continuance request or anything like that?
No, I've received no phone calls or emails.
And when you checked on the post office website, did it show that the mailing was delivered?
Yes, it did.
Thank you, Ms. Bradford. I have no further questions for her unless the board has some questions.
Would any board members like to ask any questions of Ms. Bradford? Okay.
Based on Ms. Bradford's testimony, I would ask that the board find that proper legal notice of today's citation appeal has been given to Von Russell Hair Studio, and in their absence, I would ask that you uphold the citation and the fine assessed in the citation.
I'll entertain that motion.
I move to uphold the citation and the fine.
I'll second.
Can you just also include
That's CM260?
I'm sorry, could you also include that service was proper? That was part of her.
And, yes, and
That
that they were properly noticed.
And the second reflects that as well, I would imagine, yes? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item number 10, Victoria's Beauty Salon.
Now, I spoke to Ms. Marsh just a few moments ago about this location, and the board office did receive a phone call indicating that they had an illness. So I guess I would pose it to the board to continue this matter or not. I don't know that it was a specific request to continue, but they did call and say they were unable to be here because they were ill. So I'll take that as, I guess, a continuance request. I won't object because it's a first continuance request, and it is their appeal. So.
Okay.
Once again, Mr. President, you have a wild animal in a salon, and yet we're continuing it for 3 months. So is there some assurance that the animal's going to be removed?
There's not a menagerie of animals at the salon?
Well, I would remind the board that this is not a complaint that the board brought. This is a citation that has been issued to the salon, and the person has requested to have you hear the matter. So I think it's a little bit different posture than the complaint and notice of hearing where we're bringing it. In this case, they've said, we got a citation, please consider changing that citation for me in some way. And so, again, especially because it's a first request, I'm going to go ahead and request that you do continue it. But certainly Mr. Leader's point is something you should consider.
And also to Mr. Leader's question, should the inspectors go into that salon and see the same animal in that salon, we will cite again. It is against the law. It is against the laws of the state of Nevada and the cosmetology laws of the state of Nevada that particular animal be in the salon. If we go in and see another occurrence of that, we will cite again.
Have you been back into the salon to do an inspection to make sure that the bird is gone or the animal's gone?
Is this going to be under testimony?
Yeah.
Again, this is not
Yeah.
testimony, so what's before the board? So I'll entertain a motion. Any kind of motion, please.
All right, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we continue item number 10 to next meeting.
Is there a second? Please.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? Mr. Leader? No? Anyone? Okay. I'll have that vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. I believe that's 4-3. That motion carries. The nays were Mr. Leader, Ms. Tran, and Ms. Long. Okay. Item number 11 on the agenda. Angela Ramirez. Oh, we have somebody here. Yay. I'm trying to. So if you will please stand, we can swear you in and then we'll get going. Okay. Miss Bradley, when you're ready.
Thank you. So I've just spoke with Ms. Ramirez, and she has agreed that Exhibit 1 may be admitted so that the board can look at it. So I will go ahead and pass that exhibit out.
So admitted.
Okay, I would now call Ms. Marsh, if the board's ready.
Okay.
Ms. Marsh, would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Charlene Marsh, M-A-R-S-H,
And who is your employer?
Nevada State Board of Cosmetology.
And what is your job title?
Field and Office Assistant 1.
And as part of your duties as Field and Office Assistant 1, did you issue the citation in this case?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us about that?
I was out doing inspections on May 20th and came to the salon where she works, the Enclave, and Angela Ramirez was doing hair, and I did know that the salon was licensed for skin only, so I did call the office to verify they were still skin only in case I was misinformed.
And so then what happened?
So since she was doing hair and it was licensed for skin only, I issued the citation and issued one to the salon as well for doing hair in an unlicensed, or salon not licensed for skin, or I apologize, that's not licensed for hair but skin only. It wasn't full service at the time.
And was this a first offense?
Yes.
And is there anything else that you'd like to tell the board about the citation?
I didn't give it directly to Ms. Ramirez. Mr. Alvandia requested that he do it after she was finished with her client.
Okay. So you didn't ask her to immediately stop?
No.
I have no further questions for Ms. Marsh at this time.
Ms. Marsh,
Yes.
was the skin establishment license posted?
Yes.
Had you asked Ms. Ramirez if she saw the establishment license?
I didn't approach Ms. Ramirez because she was doing color on a client, and I didn't really, and there were other people waiting for massage and skin services, and I didn't want to make an issue of it in front of the public client.
And do you know the time frame that elapsed prior to, how much time elapsed from the citation to the establishment becoming a full-service salon?
I apologize, I don't.
I'd be interested in that, and if there's any way we can find that information from staff. That was going to be my question to Ms. Ramirez.
I don't think so. We could certainly place a call. It would be licensed through the Reno office. I could place a call to the Reno office to try and ascertain that while you continue with the hearing.
Okay. Any other board members have questions for Ms. Marsh? Okay. Ms. Bradley?
I think now it's time for the respondent to question Ms. Marsh if she has questions of her.
Ms. Ramirez, if you have any questions for Ms. Marsh, please.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I have no further witnesses, so I would rest at this time.
Okay. Now it's the opportunity for you to present your case, if you would, please.
I understand that I was working in a esthetician establishment now. I was not aware at the time. I had signed the paper. I thought it was turned in. I did not see the license that was the skincare license that was posted. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention to it. I guess I should have now. But basically, I would just am asking, since it wasn't my intention to work in a salon that wasn't licensed properly for me to work in, if I could possibly get the fine reduced. And I have the owner here with me to testify on my behalf as well.
And so are you the gentleman that was the form that was filled out, and then you because the letter that we have here says that somebody was ill at one point, or is that, yeah?
Yes, he was.
That was me, sir.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to
Yes,
thank you for hearing our case. It was not our intention to defraud the cosmetology board. It was just miscommunication between me and Ms. Ramirez. She is fully licensed as a cosmetologist. I saw her license. I admit my fault that I should have been more careful, but because of my illness, I entirely forgot about it, because when you're taking medication, you tend to drift. At any rate, the reason why I'm here is because I'd like you to give due consideration to our appeal, that the burden is on me, and that she may be freed from being fined, because it was not both our intention to do that. In fact, since I'm already here, I'd like to, now that I'm feeling better, to ask for a continuance on my part too, to fully close the case.
Okay. You're actually not on the agenda item before us, so I don't know that were you expecting to come before us as well?
Yes, well...
I think Ms. Ramirez is the only one that appealed the citation.
I could probably go to Ms. Marsh's office to ask for continuance, because I called the board in Vegas, and they told me to speak to them about maybe, since I'm feeling better, to ask for continuance on my part. But I'm mainly here for her right now.
I'm just, okay, well, you'll have to talk with the board office. I'm just concerned because I know there's a time frame to request the appeal, and I'm not sure you're within that time frame. I don't know when your citation was issued, but you can talk with the board office about that.
Okay.
Mr. Ramirez, do you know or remember offhand how long it was? Because you said that you stopped doing hair and then got the correct license for
it was about a week.
Okay.
May I interject
if
also?
I could interject down here in Las Vegas?
Oh.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I have that information you were looking for. A new application was submitted May the 28th. to change to full service. It was approved with a new S number 14031.
And how long was that from
So
the
May-
date of violation? 8 days,
believe
yeah,
the
so a
violation
week,
was
yes, absolutely.
May 20th.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And
Sorry,
that-
sir, go ahead.
Yes, and at that time she ceased and desist from practicing while I corrected the matter.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Booth. Button.
Mr. Ramirez, were you aware that you didn't have a full salon license when you hired this young lady?
I'm a Mr. Alvendia. Sorry.
I'm
We're not married, but that would be
you're
nice.
okay. I'm
maybe.
sorry. I'm sorry. Were you aware when you hired Ms. Ramirez?
Yes, I am fully aware. In fact, Ms. Mars told me that as soon as I get someone who will be practicing cosmetology to change that. I already am licensed as a skin establishment, and she told me that I should go back and change that to a full status, which I intended to do, but unfortunately things have...
So you hired her knowing that you did not have this
Oh, no.
license?
Right, but with the intent that they were going to change.
Yeah, we were... I was going to do that. Like I said, it was a miscommunication.
But legally, you
because-
couldn't hire somebody until you had that license,
Exactly.
correct?
No, but we were talking about her practicing in my establishment, and then I intended to change my status, but unfortunately I fell ill. But because I already even asked her to sign the paperwork, I was supposed to submit it, knowing that intently that she knew that I was already changing the status. She didn't. And besides, when Miss Mars came, she was not even practicing yet. She was working on a relative. But that's beside the point.
Right.
In other words, we just want to tell you that we don't want to defraud the government or the in fact, I'm a fully licensed massage therapist, and I make sure that I'm up to date and stuff like that. And I really intended to do the same thing with my other services, but unfortunately, things have their way of getting in the way. So we just want to.
One more question for Ms. Ramirez. So you were aware that he was in the process of getting that license?
Before I started, he told me that everything was in order. The state board had came to check the place, and I could start. So that's why I started.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
He told me that everything was done and that it was okay for me to start. So that's when I started.
And what made you feel you could tell her that?
No. What she meant was that that I was to submit the paperwork, and hence she can start. But because when I went there for the skin, they said that if I go in, they could process it fast. But it was more of both of us assuming that we've done our part for each other. So, and for that, we're very sorry.
And this is my last question. Ms. Ramirez, are you aware that licenses have to be posted?
I am now. I mean, I know my license has to be posted. I've never been a cosmetologist in charge before. I did go down to state board before I started there and asked them if I needed to turn in any paperwork. They said no, so I wasn't aware about his licensing that he needed. I am aware now, though, that every license of everything needs to be posted.
And how long are you out of school, may I ask?
13 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Ramirez?
I have a question. How long were you practicing there prior to the citation?
About a month. I started in April.
That's when I...
And that's when he was gone because he had surgery.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused because he was talking about some paperwork that you guys signed between each other that said you were going to, and I'm not quite sure. What did you sign?
Got a paper from the state board in Reno, and they said this is what needs to be turned in. I filled out my name as cosmetologist in charge, and I handed it to him because he's the owner. So I figured he would handle it. But like I said, or he said, he never turned it in apparently. So.
Okay. Are you an independent contractor, or are you hired as an employee?
Yeah, I rent there.
Do you have a state business license and all that stuff?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I have a question. Mr. Alvaneta, you said that she hadn't really started yet, that she was just working on her relatives, yet Ms. Ramirez said that she was already there a month. Can you clarify?
Well, basically, what she was doing was she was moving in, but she was practicing at her old place, and so, in other words, when I got sick, I did not even tell them because I didn't want to alarm them that I was sick. So, in other words, I made her think and assume that it was already done, but because of my illness, I forgot to do completely, among other things, the submission of that thing, not knowing that life has to go on. And so, in other words, it's not her fault. I fully accept responsibility.
I guess I'm just trying to get a timeline because you said a month.
Yeah,
well, she said a month. You said a week.
It's a month, but she never started until, fortunately, when she visited. She was in the process of moving. We agreed on her practicing at the end of April, so I think she considered that a month from May.
Is that true, Mr. Ramirez? Do you find that to be accurate? When you started, were you there a month before the citation was issued, or were you there a week?
I was there a
The
month.
week was the difference between when it was a skin establishment and a cosmetology establishment. It was 8 days, as Mr. Green testified.
So
Yeah, I was there a
basically, you were
month.
working there a month before this all went down. Okay, thank you.
The discussion he had before about the relative, I believe, is when Miss Marsh was there initially, is what he was trying to talk about. Any further questions for the Ms. Ramirez?
I have it.
Please.
So, Ms. Ramirez, you said you went down to the board office. Is that after you had a citation or before?
No, before I even started or signed my contract and everything.
So, why did you go down to the board office?
To get everything in motion to start working there. So
But
I
you've
could
been
get-
licensed 14 years, and
Yes, I was getting the paperwork for him to turn in.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Before you went to work there.
Yes.
I
Okay.
think she said she was signing to be cosmetologist in charge. So it sounds
I
like
see.
with the
Okay.
with the change
Okay.
application, she was going to be the named cosmetologist in charge.
So when you went in and you turned in the paperwork, you were already.
I'm sorry, I didn't turn in the paperwork. I just went down there to see what needed to be done and
I
to
see.
get the paperwork.
And did you let them know you were currently at the enclave?
I just told them I was moving to there.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
I have another question for clarification here. You have a station there with a mirror and a chair, like a hair station, correct? How long was that hair station in that establishment?
It wasn't there before I started. It's a new
Yeah,
salon establishment.
So that was newly remodeled
Yes.
prior to you coming on board, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
With the intent of continuing what used to be. Yes.
Any further questions?
Mr. President, I have a question of staff. Is now an appropriate time to ask a question of Mr. Landry? Because I kind of don't understand where is the stopgap mechanism for the board office. If we've known that there was a hair station in there, then there should have been a salon map. And if somebody's asking for paperwork for a cosmetologist in charge application, it seems like the board office could have.
We get tons and tons of cosmetologist in charge applications that have never turned in because they decide not to move forward. Chasing those down for something that never happens, I don't think would be a good use of staff time. The second thing is when we do get an application, there is an inspection, a change of service. Until we get that application, we're not aware of anything going on unless we're physically there. Any person, any landlord, any owner can change whatever they want in the salon without telling us. The only way we know it is if they send the paperwork in. The paperwork was sent in as under testimony after the fact of all this. So we were unaware until Ms. Marsh walked into the place and saw that there were services going on that were not legal, not part of the services that were licensed. That's the only way we would know.
Also, Mr. Landry, doesn't there, as I remember when I opened my salon, I remember Mr. Green was actually inspected my salon. And when they come in for a final inspection, you can declare your cosmetologist in charge at that time. I was never aware that there was a separate paperwork that you can actually submit.
There's not separate paperwork.
I didn't think so.
What they were doing is coming into, to say that they were they were the cosmetologist in charge. You can change cosmetologist in charge
Sure.
and submit a form like that. But there had never been a cosmetologist in charge of that salon because that salon never offered cosmetology services.
And is there an inspection if they are going to be adding on, to be a full service? Does an inspection have to take place before practice goes into play?
That I'm not positive. Ms.
So
Marsh
there's
could probably.
there's no final inspection after the paperwork is finished.
We actually do a verbal checklist, either in the office or by phone, and issue the license in good faith. And cosmetologists can be listed on skin for doing skin as well. So it's a little hard to determine what everybody's doing in every salon. So we're assuming in good faith that they're working in salons that cover all services. But we always do the verbal checklist, issue the license, and we try to follow up within 1 to 2 weeks on those first inspections.
And Mr. Landry, I did want to maybe just correct what you've just said, which is every establishment has a cosmetologist in charge, regardless of whether they're skin only or full service.
Actually, they have a cosmetology professional in charge. They're not required to have a cosmetologist. If you're only performing nail tech services, you would have a nail tech in charge, not a cosmetologist
But
in
the
charge.
form says cosmetologist in charge. So if you want to correct the form, that's fine. Right. But every form has a cosmetologist in charge for a licensed establishment.
I was unaware of that. That correction will be made this week.
Okay. You wanted to say, sir? Yes, please.
Again, what transpired is when I applied for originally I intended the place to be a full service
Salon.
Salon. When I came in to apply, Ms. Marsh was good enough to point to me what needs to be done. So I even submitted a map of everything, including that of the future cosmetology station.
Yeah, so we have a copy of it as a record.
She
Yes.
is aware of that it will be. I thought for some reason too, besides my illness, that it was a formality because I already have established contact
license.
with the cosmetology board that I have a skin because I paid the $200 something.
Right, for the licensure
So I
fee,
thought it was
yeah.
formality for me to let them know that I have now a manager in charge of cosmetology for her to practice there. So again, not to confuse but I was addressing her question about the fact that the cosmetology board is aware that it was going to be translated or changed into a full service later on. It was again an error on my part that I thought the formality was there for me to submit her name, to just change it, not knowing that which I gathered later, that I need to pay another $200, which I think is another matter to discuss. You
Right.
know?
Well,
maybe I could come later on to rectify the situation because we're not a big establishment. First and foremost, to cough out $400
Additional
just
money
to
for the
change.
licensure.
Yeah, because in other, like in my case, if you need to change, you just pay a minimal amount because you already paid the major expense. To pay for another $200, I think is
Excessive.
not unreasonable, but excessive. So maybe some other time I could
Yeah,
come out
at some
here.
point, there's comments. There's a comment period at the beginning, at the end. That's definitely something that you could make at that point if you wish to stay afterwards. At the end of the meeting, we offer the availability to do that, and it's definitely something that we should discuss. I believe we've established that you guys were doing your best, apart from a clerical error,
Yes.
to be licensed and honest. I
And
mean, the
we
time
are
frame
sorry.
for what you've said about everything seems to work. So, any further questions of either Ms. Ramirez or?
I have some discussion.
Sure.
Not. That's when you want to close this.
Well, Ms. Bradley.
I think, yeah, if they don't have any more testimony, then I think it would be time.
Okay. Mr. Nixdorf, further discussion.
Yeah, this sort of...
No, I think she should rest first. I don't know if she said that she's done presenting her case.
She nodded and indicated that she was finished.
I just didn't hear a verbal cue. I apologize.
Okay. Mr. Nixdorf.
This kind of hits a point with me because we often talk about our licensees as licensees, but in this particular case and in many cases throughout the state of Nevada, these people are independent business owners. They aren't necessarily just the licensees because they have their own business license within that establishment, and I think they need to be accountable for that business aspect, and because they're not staff. And so while I feel for her as far as the fine and all that type of stuff, I'm inclined to believe that she has a responsibility here as an independent business person doing business inside another business. And while he wants to take responsibility for it, I think she has a definite responsibility as a business person to comply with the laws that she's agreed to and that are part of our state laws. So just wanted to bring that up.
And also to that point, but kind of opposing it, don't you believe that she has done, I mean, yes, clearly there was a clerical error made, whether that's an illness or whatnot. She also had a business license. She also is a cosmetologist in good standing, as far as I know. So we're not talking about, yes, there was a month where that didn't occur, but we're talking about the difference between a licensed establishment that was skin and hair. So we still have inspectors going in. We still have the protection of the public. It was just a difference of licensure.
I think she was clearly aware that it was a skin-only establishment at the time, and that, based on all this paperwork and everything that she comes to the board and says she wants to be cosmetologist in charge. She's clearly aware that she shouldn't have been working there initially, and that during that process, that she should have been very aware that was actually happening and not just give the paperwork to him and say so much. I mean, she has a responsibility to see that license before she goes to work there.
And I'd like to add to that. That's kind of what I'm hearing, that you went down to the board, got the paperwork. Hopefully you read the paperwork, what needed to be done, and knew the process when you handed it in. So that's I hear the same thing, is that she was aware by going to the board, getting the paperwork, and knowing what the process was. And once you're aware of that process, then you really need to follow through with that. That's my thought.
Exactly.
Can I say something? No?
Okay. So any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. President, prior to the motion, I did have a question. I'm trying to figure out the NRS that is being violated. It appears that there's two violations. That one is a violation of NRS 644190, and the other one is NAC 644380. I'm a little embarrassed. I can't. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's what's written.
And so there's two separate fines, but for the same. Like, is she being tried twice for the?
There's one citation under discussion. That would be extremely excessive. So
yeah, it's just there's one citation, and the fine is listed as $500 because under your fining schedule, failure to practice in a cosmetological establishment is $500. So she was practicing hair services in a place that was not licensed for that, so that's a $500 fine. I think there is more than one NRS listed just for your reference because they kind of go together. But
and so, what is the $1,000 fine?
That was for the establishment, I believe.
So the establishment has a fine, the owner had a fine, and then the licensee had a fine?
Yeah, I believe the establishment was fined $1,000 if you look.
And then this is a two-part question because I also overheard the owner, Mr. Alvendia did not seem to indicate that he was aware of the 20-day deadline to appeal. So now there's another situation on the table where somebody is saying they don't know something.
Yeah, that's not before you today.
Right, it's not before us, but I'm just kind of wondering how this is going to play into our decision-making when...
Shouldn't. Because you shouldn't be considering any of that.
Thank you.
Before you hear strictly is
Ms. Ramirez.
Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you.
I have one more question. Can we reduce that fine?
You can pose any motion you want to before the board. That's your right as a board member.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah. So there is a way to do it. So if you look at NAC 644-600, it says that the board adopts the following schedule of fines for any violation of the provisions listed. If you drop down to the second grouping, it's the cosmetologist or other licensed natural person. And so she's been cited. Her violation there is failure to practice in a cosmetological establishment. That's the $500 fine that you guys are talking about. Now, if you go to the very beginning of the NAC, pardon me, 1 second. NAC 644.040, in special cases upon application, the board will permit deviation from the provisions of this chapter if it finds that there is good cause for the deviation and the ends of justice so require.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we uphold the fine for Ms. Ramirez and her citation.
Is there a second?
Well, Mr. President, the citation, upholding
I'm
the
looking
citation.
for a second to the motion only.
Okay. This is an appeal of a citation. So the first is you have to find that the citation is either upheld or not upheld, and then you can move to the fine piece of it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll amend that to uphold this citation as accurate.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? I'll entertain that vote, though. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That motion carries.
Okay, so now I'll make a motion to uphold the fine of $500.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to see it reduced to $100. I think there's some circumstances in here. I do feel that they're guilty, but that Mrs. Ramirez is guilty, but I'd like to see us reduce the fine to $100. And for that reason, that I think there were some circumstances surrounding it.
And I tend to be supportive of Ms. Booth's opinion. Ms. Ramirez said that she was told verbally that the paperwork was properly submitted, and while I do expect her to see that visible posting of that establishment license, I think under the circumstances, I also would like to see the fine reduced, and I thought $100 was a good suggestion.
And I agree with both of you, so I concur with Ms. Booth and Mr. Leader.
Well, my motion still stands. I'm not modifying my motion.
And the second? Okay. 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 All right. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So
Can we just go down?
for the ayes, show of hands. And for the nays. Okay, so that motion carries. Oh, wait. No.
That motion fails.
Oh, it fails. Okay. All right. I can't count.
I'd like to make a motion
Ms. Booth.
to change the fine to $100 from $500 to $100.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
And could the board be clear about which citation and fine they're talking about? Because there are two fines. So if you're
to cover both
Oh, no,
citations.
I'm sorry. There's
The only item
one
before the
Right.
board today is agenda item number 11, and that is case C14-882.
My mistake. Ms. Ramirez is the only one appealing.
Right, yeah, so it's cosmetology license 23575. And the NAC is 644.040, deviation from regulation. So Ms. Booth and Mr. Leader, that's the NAC you're citing with regards to
Correct.
changing of the
That
fine
is absolutely correct.
to $100.
And just so the record is clear and that you're complying with the regulation, could you please put on the record the good cause for the deviation?
Which would be the extenuating circumstances around why the fine was issued in the first place with regards to paperwork, illness, and so forth. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll have that vote now. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Okay, Mr. Ramirez. So the nays were Miss Long and Mr. Nixdorf. And Miss Tran, sorry.
What happened?
The board will be in contact with you and send you the information. So essentially, your fine has been reduced to $100 by the board. Okay? Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and effort.
Could we have a break?
Yeah, and we'll take a little break here for running to the bathroom and all that. It is 10:17, so 10 minutes. Okay, Vegas, if you guys are ready in about 3 minutes, we're going to give ourselves 3 more minutes, then we're going to get back underway, please.
We can go across to Kama Coffee or to Firkin and Fox. Those are the two most likely candidates in the Carson City area.
Is anybody opposed to trying Firkin just because the other one's sometimes a little slow with the food? Okay. Sorry, Vegas. No Firkin for you guys. Get it? Da 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 da. Okay. Call this meeting back to order at 10:26. The next item on the agenda is agenda item number 12, Norma Tovar. Norma Tovar? Well, it's not legal, so okay. So if both of you would please stand and raise your right hand, we're going to swear you in, even though this isn't a trial portion. We just want to have it for the record. If you could raise your right hand, please. Raise your right hands. Thank you.
Do each of you swear the testimony you're giving in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
So yes.
Okay. Okay, if you'd please present your case before us. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm so sorry. If you could please say and spell your first and last names, both of you, for the record.
Norma Tovar. Normatov, like Victor, AR.
Vidal Castañon. Bidalcastanon.
Thank you. And now, if you would please present your information. Still not working.
First, she wanted like you prove it to the portable scene. Just wanna do a new business, so that's why here, so they can prove the portable scene.
Okay, so is there any other information you have to present to us?
Yeah, they have all the information. They have pictures. And they say they have everything they needed.
Mr. President, is there an opportunity for questions while they're assimilating their paperwork?
Of course, Mr. Leader, if you'd like to ask a question.
I'm always very curious as to the wastewater. What is the intention for the disposal of the wastewater? Perhaps I need to mention them by name. So, Miss Tovar? Maybe she's busy.
Yes.
Miss Tovar, what will be the procedure for the disposal of the wastewater?
This portable scene is like two barrels like that, 5 gallon each, and the wastewater is going to the restaurant, to the sink of the restaurant.
To the sink or the toilet? Which one?
What they say to the dirty water just gonna down to the toilet.
To the toilet?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a question. When have you talked to Mr. Green, and has he shown you what we've approved in the past? And is this similar?
Yes.
And could you live with those standards that we've approved in the past?
Yes.
You don't want any variation from what we have approved in the past? You don't want anything different, or any changes from what we have approved in the past?
Yes.
What is that change that you're asking for? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's the end of my questions.
Mr. Green, if you could please, for edification, let the board know what we've approved in the past for this variance with portable sinks.
Certainly. This is the portable sink variance guidelines that the board approved previously. And I did meet with Ms. Tovar and the gentleman, and I gave them a copy of this. We reviewed each item. And what the variance guidelines are is that they maintain a minimum of 20 gallons of fresh water stored on site with the ability to dispense both hot and cold water. The fresh water supply must continually be maintained and replenished. All water tanks, hoses, and lines must be clearly labeled or marked with permanent ink as clean on the freshwater equipment and waste on the wastewater equipment. A waterproof sign prominently displayed for public view by the sink should state water not for human consumption, do not drink, hand washing only. The tanks and plumbing lines must be cleaned monthly per professionally established standards. Log must be maintained on site documenting the date and time the cleaning and sanitizing of tanks, hoses, and lines was performed. And wastewater must be dumped immediately when container is more than 3/4 full. And Ms. Tovar has also brought in some photos of, I don't know if you all can see this, but she bought these already? Yeah. Okay. She has purchased the tanks, and she does have them. She has some clean water tanks marked. She has wastewater tanks that are marked, and she has some photos here to support her following the guidelines previously established by the board. She also has the sign made up, water not for human consumption, do not drink, and she has copies of the log that the board had required as well.
So, for all intents and purposes, she's ready to go pending our approval of this variance.
I believe that is correct. You're ready to open as soon as you get the approval? Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something right here, Neil? One of the things that I'm hearing, Mr. Green, and maybe we should clarify that, is when dumping the wastewater that it shouldn't be in the sink. I think we've been in large complexes before with kiosks where they have a utility room where you can dump into a drain sink. So maybe that's something that we should think about adding on in the future to our policy, that when you're going to be in an established like this, that it doesn't go into a public sink, that it would go into the toilet in this type of business. And I can see this is one of the things that's different from what we've approved before. So I'd like to add on to this variance that when we do approve this today, if we do, that it would be the wastewater be disposed of in the toilet and not a sink.
To further Ms. Booth's concern that wastewater be disposed of properly, I was always under the impression that wherever the wastewater is being disposed, there is a written authorization to dispose it in that particular location.
Right, but that's not the purview of the Board of Cosmetology. That's not our job here today.
Well, but that is in the law.
I understand that it's in the law, but what's before us is a variance to the regulations that we've had.
And so I'm proposing we add to this variance that one issue, and then we can discuss this at another time.
Of course. Mr. Nixdorf.
Okay. I'm looking over your floor plan here, and I don't see a bathroom. Could you indicate to me where the bathroom is?
The bathroom, this is like 100 or 90 feet for the location right there.
Is it inside the building, inside the space that
Yeah,
you're
it's-
renting, or is it outside the space?
No, this inside the building.
It's a flea market, right?
So could you kind of show me on this diagram approximately where the bathroom is? Could you walk me down the hall or something like that?
For clarification, where the address is on top and you see the words Plaza del Sol,
Yes.
they are indicating that to the left of that Plaza del Sol, just where the paper ends, is where the restroom is located.
Thank you.
And I believe this is kind of a flea market setting, and she's renting a booth in there, and it's all under one roof, and the restroom within 100 feet.
Oh, I see. Oh, got it. Okay.
So we're talking like an open air type of setting.
Open, I wouldn't say open air because it's an enclosed, but she's renting in a flea market type setting.
Oh, okay.
A booth.
Okay.
Got it.
But you
So
have- you
it's not
close
an
it up.
office space or a specific room like that, right?
No, it's not a self-contained suite.
That's good. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Nixdorf.
I'd like to make a motion that we go with the staff recommendations and approve this request for a portable sink and variance to the NRSs that are applicable.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Does that motion include Ms. Booth's recommendation?
It does not. It is strictly a variance, just like they asked for here.
And can I thought it was inside of a room, so I think they're going to have what you can do with it in the complex. They're going to have a utility room, just like all of our other kiosks. I thought this was in a building, so I'm comfortable with that concept.
Okay, but for future reference, maybe potentially future agenda items at the end of the meeting, we can discuss what you proposed.
I'd like to see, I'd like
Okay.
to see that discussed.
Having no further discussion, I'll have that vote now. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Okay, Ms. Tovar, you will be required to do everything that we've established for you with this variance, and hopefully we don't have to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Leslie Howard, if you could step forward, please. You're funny.
Could be. It's something to make
I should swear him in, shouldn't I? Shouldn't I swear him in? Ms. Howard, if you could please stand and raise your right hand so we could swear you in. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Howard.
Yes, on January 25th of 2013, I went to the Board of Cosmetology to renew my esthetician's license, which was due on the 27th. The 25th was a Friday. I got there very late in the day, was ready to pay my credit card when I discovered that I was supposed to have some kind of something to do with paying child support. I don't know whether I received it or I possibly misplaced it, but I wanted to pay right there and then. I was not able to do it. They said, we can't take your money unless we have all your paperwork. And I pleaded and I begged because I knew that I was going to be hit with another $20 fee, which financially was going to be rough on me since I lost a lot of money in business for the last so many years. So I carried on, but I didn't win. So I knew that I had to go and get a money order because now I couldn't use my credit card, and I was obligated to pay that $20. So I got that, filled out the form in regards to this child support, mailed that in. I have a cashier's check, the upper portion showing that I got that check actually January 25th, which was a Friday of 2013, for $70. I also faxed that in, showing that that was the case. I also was told, in hopes to not to have to appear, that, and I thought this was going to fly, which it did not, I got a statement, an affidavit, and indemnity agreement showing that this number was, this particular check, my mailing, had been lost. What ended up happening is that I was not looking for aesthetic work for quite a while. I'd been in another business. I do maintain a California license, which I brought here, which is due actually September 30th of 2014. And I have my new renewal here for 2014. I've been maintaining that for 20 years. And when I decided I better get something in the world of aesthetics, I was looking for the license to realize, well, where is it? So I called up the state board, and they said, which I don't know is true or not, but I mean, anything can happen. I had to take their word, that they didn't have, they sent my license months ago. I says, you're kidding me. No. I says, well, I wasn't looking for work, so it wasn't on my mind. So I was told that I would have to pay $20 for every month that I was past that. I don't know if it was 3 months later, 4 months later, I'm not sure. And then I was back and forth waiting to see if they would consider this. And financially, I'm on state help now, and I've been out of work over a year, taking little menial jobs that are beneath me, but what can I do? Anyway, I wanted to also say that I feel real strong on the issue that these amounts are egregious. I'm the original person. I know this has nothing to do with it, but I'd like to say, because I'm very proud, that I'm the one that brought the esthetician's license in, which was called cosmetician's license in 1975 or 76. I'm the one why we're all here, because I fought Washington to do it, and I'm proud of it. I'd like the state to do something for me, which is, I think, reasonable. I'll have to swallow the $20, but I do not think I should pay for all those additional fees in regards to me showing good faith. The state board did, thank God, that helped me. They were able to give me the number of that money order, so that's why I was able to go to the bank, ultimately getting the affidavit and the upper portion that shows that. But I don't think I should be responsible to pay all these fines, which I can't afford because it got lost in the mail, or I don't know, because it's never showed up. And actually, I think it was in about April-ish, or, well, let's see, maybe April, I don't remember the month, when I actually got this affidavit. So that's my position.
Thank you. Any questions?
What are the fines? What are the total fines for this?
I believe it's $20 a month.
A month. And this is since January of 2013. I've been fighting them. I think it's so unreasonable when I had to pay $20 when I was willing to pay on the 25th, due January 27th. But because it was the weekend, I got clobbered here, so I was forced to do it. And I did it begrudgingly. And now I'm getting clobbered. This, I can't afford it, and I don't think it's fair. I think this is such an unfair amount when, yeah.
May I ask another question here? So you've paid.
Yes, of course.
You paid the $70. So the cosmetology board has the $70. You're before us to waive just.
No.
They don't have the $70 yet.
No. Let me say it again. What happened was, they would not allow me to give them my credit card on the 25th, which would have cost me $50. I was forced because the 27th, which is the day it's due, would fall on the weekend, so I was forced to pay the $20. They would not accept my money before they got that one document having to do with support. I'm 62 years old. I don't know anybody anything.
So you've never paid. You've never paid that $70 that got lost. You never went to the bank and got them.
Well, no, I got the letter showing that it was lost. It was never. Evidently, the bank knows when these come back. I didn't know about that. So the bank would know through their records whether that was ever cashed. It was never cashed.
So that $70 is just floating around somewhere in the world. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
I had a question, if that's okay. I'm noticing that the affidavit and indemnity agreement from Chase isn't actually signed or completed.
You know, it's interesting. Last night when I was putting this together, I noticed that. They did type also in the middle lost. I see that. If that were the case and a contingent on that, I would get that. You're correct. I did notice that, and I'm wondering why they didn't sign it. Mm-hmm. But they did type this up. And they did put the number responding to the check, the money order that has the upper portion of $70. I didn't even notice that in the beginning. I took it. I was so upset. If it's contingent on that and I need to fax that in, I certainly can do it. But you can see that they typed in the number. Well, I guess you wouldn't know if it's typed in by them. But it was typed in by the number, the amount, the date, which was the issuance, which reflects the money order upper portion, and the word lost.
Ms. Howard, have you just thought about retesting? Because the retesting fee is just, is it $100, $110?
I thought of that, but I don't even have that, and I just don't think it's fair. I'm willing to pay the $70. I think the board should definitely consider. California is $25. I know we're not California, but $25 for any date after your amount. I think $20, especially in this economy. And when I'm hurting, I'm on welfare. I can't get a job. I have a part-time job occasionally for $10. I've been in the business since 1976.
And so, Ms. Howard, having been in the business for so long, it would seem to me like you would be able to do quite well on the retest. And the retest fee is, I think, $110. And so that could save you a considerable amount of money. It would, in fact, save you about 75% of what your concern for the total would be.
It was a consideration, but the thing is to spend that extra money. I'm not sure if I will get a job. I was looking, there were some great hotels that were available. I would have liked to have gone in, but
regardless of Ms. Howard, regardless of the employment opportunity that you potentially see, you would be saving yourself the renewal fee by just retesting.
Well, I don't particularly like tests, but I don't know when and if I'll do that because that's also extra money I don't have.
I have another question,
That's two honest
Alex.
reasons.
My question to you on the $70, you've never gone to the bank and asked them to do a stop pay and reissue that, just like if I lost a check, you've never gone to the bank and asked them to reissue this $70?
No, because I was back and forth with the board and a gentleman that's on your board, Mr. Landry. I really thought when I was going to get this affidavit, it would fly, and then people didn't get back to me in time, and then there was a lot of months that went by. So, no, I didn't do it because I was so upset about this.
Yeah, you're aware your license hasn't been paid all this time.
She stipulated that she was interested in paying for the licensure fee. She just doesn't want to pay the late fees.
And the $20. I don't mind paying that $20 late fee that I did at the time. I'm willing to reissue the $70. I think that's very fair because I've been hurt monetarily all the, a year and a half here. I think what was issued, which you're getting the extra $20, is more than fair, and that's rough on me as well. I hope the board will consider all of this.
Anytime after the first month. Ms. Howard, I hear your concern, and I just wanted to double check. It was a $20 late fee that you are disputing, but now it's 18 months later. No. And yet
I wasn't disputing the 20. No, I had to pay the 20 because the 27th it would have been due. So
right, I understand the dates,
the 25th.
But now you've waited 18 months since you were concerned about paying the 1 month late fee.
It went beyond that. By the time I found out, it would have been 3 or 4 months later, I think.
And so that would have been $80.
And 50, about 100. Actually, it would have been maybe the 110 that you're speaking about to take a new one. Something in that neighborhood.
Mr. Landry, have you seen the completed affidavit from Chase that Ms. Howard's referring to?
Have not. What the board has in their packet is what we've received to date.
Ms. Howard, Jeanette Benaldi. According to the NRS 604.325.3, our hands are tied on waiving these fees. It should have been handled very, very quickly and closely, but since it wasn't handled, the responsibility is yours. We cannot reduce the fee by law. It's legislation that has put it into law, and we have to follow the law. If you'd like a change, you can petition the legislators, but we are bound by the law to uphold this $20 per month fee. Just so you know, I think it's been explained. It's in the law book, and that's where we're at with it today. I'm hearing what you're saying.
Well, why was I put? Why was I put through an affidavit for consideration? I mean, why do I have to go through all these changes and then told? I thought there should be exceptions to certain rules, which were certain circumstances. I think something shouldn't be so cut and dry. And I understand where you're going with this. Then go change the law. I know. I could see I see the words above right through your hair. What you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're gonna say again to me. Reiterate it, but I still think I don't know what's involved in doing that. I think these fees are egregious. I mean, in today's economy, I don't know. Is it going to be a board like this, or is it a whole big to-do? Because I'm busy just trying to make a living. What's involved with that? Because I feel that strong. I got the license to begin with, and I'll fight for this because I don't think people should be paying these kind of fees in our economy. And there are circumstances that maybe people are ill. In my case, it was lost. I wasn't looking for work at that time. It was understandable that I didn't think of the license coming in.
Leslie, yes. Can I ask Sarah? So, Sarah, by law, we cannot reduce this fee.
No, I mean, the law is pretty clear in that it says, I'm looking at NRS 644.325, subsection 3. For each month or a fraction thereof after the date for renewal specified by the board, in which a license is not renewed, there must be assessed and collected at the time of renewal a penalty of $50 for a school of cosmetology and $20 for an establishment for hair braiding, cosmetological establishment, and all persons licensed. So,
per month?
It's per month. Yeah, it's for each month or a fraction thereof.
It says cosmetologist. Excuse me. You used the word cosmetologist. Is the word esthetician in there specifically?
Well, it says all persons licensed pursuant to this chapter. So estheticians and cosmetologists and manicurists are all persons licensed pursuant to Chapter 644. So it's every license. The only exception is that a school of cosmetology pays $50 a month, and everybody else, all kinds of businesses and licensees, would pay $20 a month for a late fee. And it does say must be assessed. There's no ability to deviate from the NRS provisions that I'm aware of. It's not in the NRS, so that would mean that we have to follow what the legislature has set forth. One thing I would offer to Ms. Howard, I don't know if she's investigated it. It's my understanding that there are some programs for individuals that are struggling financially. Okay, and that they'll pay your renewal fee. I heard that was a possibility before, but I don't know all the parameters.
I'd like to have somebody. I looked into that, and I found that there wasn't. If somebody from the board would be so kind to do that, I would love it. Because I can't do this, and I don't know when I'll go about going to take another test. And emotionally, I can't deal with a lot of things right now in my life. To take a test and have to do it, I mean, most people hate tests, let's face it. But,
yeah, I think it's something that it may be through the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation. We call it DETR a lot of times for short, DETR. I think they may have the program. I'm not sure, but I had heard that there were some nonprofits that have at times helped individuals get back on their feet and pay the fees so that they can get working again. But I don't know the parameters. I'm guessing it's Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation is what I'm thinking is an option. And if they don't do it, hopefully they would be able to point you somewhere.
Because I made all my calls and I didn't find that to be the case. Maybe this wasn't Department of Employment and Training, did you say?
Training and Rehabilitation, yeah. It's something I heard of a few years ago that they do. I'm guessing you have to apply. I don't know, who qualifies and why, but it was my understanding it's a way to get people back to work if they've been on state assistance or like unemployment benefits.
I'll look into it. If not, I probably won't be working. You'll lose all my money all this time. I just don't think it's fair. I think this law really is bad news. I fought to get our license so everybody's working. Everybody on board here is because I did this. And I would think, and I know it has nothing to do with it, but I fight for my rights. And I think this is so wrong. So wrong. Once again, is this a whole to-do to get this change with these fees? Is it going to be a meeting like this so somebody like me can fight for people like myself who have circumstances? What kind of meeting? What is that about?
You would be looking to speak to your elected officials and then also state legislators.
Ms. Howard, I'm Alex Leader, and I'm the esthetician representative on the state board, and so I take your concerns very seriously, and I am going to try to do my best to work with Mr. Landry to see how we can help you solve this dilemma. I also will pursue contacting DETR on your behalf, and I'll follow up with Mr. Landry to provide you some assistance.
Thank you so much, because I'm an asset to this community. I've gone to schools beyond anybody that you've seen. I've worked with a lot of celebrities. The only thing I get is freelance occasionally, but that's rare. So, yes, thank you. I will hope to hear from you. Thank you so kindly for hearing me out.
Okay, so is there a motion? Or, I'm sorry, Ms. Howard, do you have anything else that you'd like to present to us?
No, I've said my piece, and
okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And a concern, very sweet.
I'll entertain that motion, please. Microphone.
I make a motion to deny the appeal based on state law.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. That motion carries. Ms. Howard, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for appearing before us. I did. Okay, agenda item number 14. We're looking for Mr. Caleb Cage. Great name, by the way.
Which one is this one? Oh.
And just for the record, if you could please stand and raise your right hand, please. So
Sure.
you can be sworn in. Thank you.
Swear affirm the testimony you're
And Mr. President, just as a disclosure, Mr. Cage and I are Facebook friends. You may not actually know that.
You're such a stalker, Alex. Mr. Cage.
Mr. President, members of the board, my name is Caleb Cage. I'm going to be very brief. You have a very full agenda and many items to attend to today, and I've provided a memorandum in advance of today that I know staff has provided to you as well. So I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you what our ask is going to be at the end of this, and then take any questions that you may have as well. Over the last few years, we've been working on licensure reciprocity. As your board is very well aware, you are fully compliant with Governor's Executive Order 2012-11, which requires licensure reciprocity for military spouses.
I wonder if you could speak just a little slower.
Sure can. The Executive Order 2012-11, which requires state licensing bodies to recognize licenses from other states for military spouses who are transferred to the state on military orders. Over the last couple of years, we've been working on continuing licensure reciprocity opportunities for service members themselves, specifically service members who are transitioning out of military fields that align with civilian professions in the state of Nevada. Based on a recommendation from the Interagency Council on Veterans Affairs, we have developed a general licensure reciprocity statutory language right now to propose at the next legislative session, during the 78th legislative session, that would require all state licensing bodies to recognize military training in licensure, providing licensure for military members who transfer to the state or who become civilian practitioners in the state of Nevada. This probably has this definitely has specific applications in each field. I'd like to note that we're not asking for fields to reduce their standards of licensure in any way. We know what the answer would be, and we're not interested in pursuing that anyway. What we are asking is that Nevada join the 45 other states who have generic licensure reciprocity language in their statutes, and that secondly, that we also collect data on licensees in the state or applicants and licensees in the state who have a military background. For instance, a military medic who is transitioning from being a military medic into the civilian practice of licensed practical nursing or EMS, that they would have a spot on their application saying, were you a veteran, have you ever served in the military, and some other accommodating questions along the way. In order to make sure that we can do this, I'm going around to every licensing board in the state, letting you know that this is what we anticipate doing. Hopefully opening a dialogue if there are questions or concerns about that, how it might be applied, and letting you know how this process develops going forward. One last piece to that is, as we've gone out, we've talked to boards. 3 boards so far of the 15 we've talked to have said to us, we would like to have provisions in our statute that address this, and we're able to bring that into our statutory language so that you don't have to derive or develop a new bill or
1 BDR instead of 15.
35 in this case. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's what we're doing. There's a data piece, there's a licensure reciprocity piece. All of it's covered in the memo. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. President.
Is there anything, because you're saying that you're wanting us to help with this, is there anything specific to the laws governing cosmetology in the state of Nevada that need to be changed to make that happen?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. President. Caleb Cage for the record. Not to my knowledge that there would be specific requirements. The dental hygienists, licensed social workers, and court reporters actually have requested changes to their statute to date, but nothing specific from cosmetology.
Okay.
I have a question.
Ms. Booth.
Why not add to this and waive their licensing fee the first year if they're coming out of military service? If the state would do that and make something like that legal along with this, I think that would be a really big help, because a lot of them are coming out with limited resources. So that's my thought, to make that recommendation.
Mr. President, Caleb Cage, for the record, once again, of course, if one of the things we're trying not to do is reduce revenue for boards that tend to operate off of licensing fees and make it more difficult for you to do your jobs. And so we aren't asking that. If boards decide that that's something that you would like to do, then we could certainly assist with any statutory changes. But again, we're trying to make it painless but also effective for the transitioning service member and the board trying to license them.
Mr.
Thank
Leader.
you.
Mr. Cage, thank you. I'm sure all of the board members are expressly proud that Governor Sandoval's proclamation for the Year of the Veteran. And I just wanted to be sure that while your request was for service members and veterans, but that it also included spouses or of-age children as part of their family members. Is that what your request is?
Mr. President and members of the committee, Caleb Cage for the record. Currently, right now, there is a provision, the recommendation from the Interagency Council is to include spouses and family members as well. Whether that makes it into all the way through the legislative session, we're not sure, but currently the recommendation is for that as we develop our legislation. I think a yes would have answered that. Yeah. My apologies.
Any further questions for Mr. Cage? Okay.
I would just like to make one comment that we do appreciate the veteran service, and anything that we can do within the law, we certainly look to help out. And as a matter of fact, one of our most recent hires is a veteran, Andrew Helms, who's now our CFO, served in the military as well.
Mr. Landry, did you see any roadblocks that prevents the recommendation from going through?
I don't see any, quite frankly, and because I'll be very active in the legislature with our BDR, if Mr. Cage's item comes up for discussion among the, Mr. Cage, do you know which committee you're going to be going before?
I do not. We usually go before Government Affairs for veterans issues in this room.
Yeah, we will be mostly before the Commerce and Labor committees. But if I see, and I'll have our lobbyist, Ms. Bells, take a look wherever Mr. Cage will be speaking. I'll make it a point to come and speak in support of that from our board, if the board wishes that to happen.
Is there a motion that we need to make for this, or is this just? I mean, I imagine a motion would be us supporting.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Please.
Did you have a concern before I do that?
No,
Ms. Bradley?
I just wanted to say that I know that this is something that other boards are considering, and I think for most situations for you, it's going to be there'll be some extra questions on the renewal, basically, regarding veteran services and things like that, and then you'll be sharing that with the governor's office. So, and I know now we also have some new Secretary of State questions about the business license, so there'll be a couple new things that people may be concerned about at first when they look at it, but hopefully they'll carefully read and,
And I'll second the motion.
I haven't made that yet. But
I thought you said you did.
Not quite.
Mr. Leader, if
just
you would.
based on the information.
Then I'll second it.
Yeah, based on the information that we received from the Nevada Department of Veteran Services. Is that correct? I would like to make a motion that we provide the most amount of support and direct Mr. Landry to also be present when the Veteran Services is in front of the Governmental Affairs or another such committee, that you be present and express the board's cooperation and excitement about seeing this particular opportunity work for our veterans.
And Ms. Booth?
Now I will second that. Thank you.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that what you just directed Mr. Landry to do could possibly come into conflict with him saying something about us to our legislative committees and so forth, because we best told you that you need to be there. So I'd like to make sure that it's as possible.
I would amend my motion to reflect that Mr. Landry uses best judgment on which committee to attend.
And I'll second that amendment.
Mr. Nixdorf, is that enough of a caveat for you?
Totally fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll have that vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Mr. Cage, thank you. Okay. Agenda item 15, evaluation for the executive director for annual pay increase. Possible action. Request of Ms. Benaldi, as of the May 5th board meeting. Ms. Benaldi requested a study of comparable pay executive directors in the state of Nevada, along with pay for private. In addition, this information contained below the self-evaluation of Executive Director Landry, along with letters of recommendation and thanks, have been included in the board packet. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jeanette Benaldi. After, obvious recommendations by our peers and recommendation letters and information provided by Mr. Landry, again, I would ask for the nominal fee to be allotted to Mr. Landry at this time.
Essentially, what you're looking for is the next step up in pay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The nominal amount.
The most minimum while increasing all at the same time.
Not the most minimum, but
increase, the most minimal increase.
The
next
maximum
step.
allotted increase, which is nominal. How's that?
Right. Okay.
For heavens to Pete.
I have a question. Is this and I'm asking this because I'm a little confused on. Is this the yearly raise? Have you been with us for a year now?
This was the discussion before the board for I believe it was the May 5th meeting. At that time, it had been over a year, and there was not the initial annual or per annum increase of salary. I believe we did a review was it 3 months or shortly thereafter 3 months?
So everybody felt he was doing a good job at 3 months. And
Right,
gave him
but now we've been on a year plus
So
and
this
several, which is why Ms. Benaldi brought this issue
Okay,
before us.
so-
And so what we're looking is the next step up in pay
Is this
grade.
the annual?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so that we could talk about some other things. This is what I would just like to bring up is talk about some of the things at the annual review, because I think part of it is I don't think we as a board have done a good job in some areas, because I really think we have not been clear what our goals are and what we expect from Mr. Landry. And so I think at this time is what I would like to bring up, and maybe we need to write a policy on it, is what are the goals that we have directed him on. And I would also like to see them, and I kind of brought it up so that is to see a flow chart like on the, I got to get my notes here.
Before you go on, Ms. Booth, I just wanted to mention there is another agenda item on the actual executive director evaluation policy.
Yeah, this evaluation policy that you have is where we're going to.
I can bring it up there.
Right.
Okay. Okay, very good. Then I'm ready to vote on it.
So,
I'll bring it up
is
at
there
that
any
point.
further discussion? Okay. Ms. Benaldi, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we increase Mr. Landry's pay to the nominal fee allotted by the state.
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that vote now. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? That motion
Nay.
carries. Oh, sorry. Mr. Leader, that's a nay? Alex?
Yes.
That motion carries. Okay.
And just to be sure, so that because I don't want to have confusion going on. This increase is as of today, and this is now my new review date. Does this go back to April, which was my original review date? I just want clarification.
Next April, right.
Right. No, the motion is for a pay increase.
Okay, the motion was for a pay increase as of today.
Okay, as of today, and the new review will be as of this board meeting, or will it be back to the April my start date? I just want to make sure that we're all clear going forward.
Right. So probably another motion then.
I'd like to make a motion that it goes back to his original review date of
So
April.
we'll retro his pay as of April. What was the date, Mr. Landry?
April 8th, 2013.
Okay. Oh, no, 2014.
2014
Okay.
was when my review was.
So as of April 8th, 2014, this is the new pay increase.
And then his next review will be in April.
Well, April 2015. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item 16. Now, Ms. Booth, you have a presentation with regards to a proposed executive director evaluation policy.
Okay.
So if you'll please step in front of us.
Oh, yes, let me
Thank
do
you.
that. Let me make sure I got everything.
Moving right along.
Koki Booth, board member. As a board member, it's our responsibility to write policy for the director. It's the director's responsibility to write policy for staff. And I really feel that we don't have a lot of these policies in play, and we really need to clean it up and get them all in place so that Mr. Landry has a clear expectation and knows what we want to do going forward. I actually, again, my friends that are HR directors are probably tired of me by now. But what we came up with, Mr. Landry liked 360, but in talking to the HR directors, they felt that was too basic. That would be more something that you
What
would
is
use.
360?
It's a way to go and evaluate somebody. It's a computer program. It's very
Okay,
basic.
thank you. Sorry.
I'm sorry. And it would be something that you would want to use maybe for your managers in doing something like that. What I came up with was a plan to go over and evaluate the director. And if you look at it, it's your very first thing that you come to. It allows each board to change the questions should they have some that they feel is more important. My plan is that the board president would every year appoint a board member to, and this will be after you've got this right here, then at the very last page is what I'm going over now. And this would be our policy, that the board president to appoint a board member to handle the evaluation. 90 days before the director's review, so 90 days before April, they'd FedEx out to everybody who I've recommended here, and you can change or approve or change or whatever you'd like, this form. And this would be sent out to everybody, and they would fill it out and mail it back in an envelope that we've supplied with stamp on it. And then we would take that, the person that has been appointed by the president, to evaluate what it was. And what this is really a tool for us to work with the director, saying this is where we see your strong points are, and kudos to you for that. This is where we think you need to improve, and this is maybe what we'd like to see you work on in the future. So this is just a tool, and there's 3 ways to kind of go through it and work on it. You can answer the questions, you can attach a report to the back of this. There's 3 sections that you could answer in there, or you could just simply fill out on the very bottom the 3 different answers, however you would like to do it. But my thought was to go to each board member, to go to all of the schools, to go to our lobbyist, and direct managers to the director. So that would be the people that report to Mr. Landry. And again, it's not a tool to badmouth or badger or anything like that. It's just really a tool to guide and work together as a team. And the person would prepare that tabulation, review with the board president. Mr. Landry said we've got to make it public record. I didn't feel, I always hate to do that to somebody, but because we are the agency we are, they'd have to be made public record. But nobody would know whose was sent in because there's no signature on it, there's no thing for a name. We just know that we mailed 20 out, we got 10 back. And the person doing it would receive a full day's reimbursement for their time for doing this process. So does anybody have any questions that I could try to answer?
Ms. Koki.
Yes, Mr. Perry.
I'm not a big fan of this. While I appreciate your efforts to have us be a little more in control, because clearly there have been times in the past when the executive director has taken control of the board versus the board controlling what the executive director does. So to that degree, I totally applaud what you're doing and believe that we definitely should be in control of what the executive director is doing.
I'm only trying to give him an opinion because we're supposed to do a review every year and set up a policy to do that review.
And that's where I become a little bit conflicted. this is pretty evaluatory without a lot of statistics behind it. Mr. Landry has done a strategic plan, and I think he did a superb job. The template that he uses for that, I think, is an exceptional template for developing your strategic plan and creating a way for him to monitor progress on that strategic plan. And we approved that strategic plan back when he first brought it to us. And I think that we should pay close attention to how his progress on that strategic plan as part of his evaluation, because we've approved that that's what he does. And now it's up to us to make sure that he does that. This that you've presented is a bit too evaluatory with opinions from people that may or may not have something to do with his strategic plan. It could lead to a misconception as to what he needs to do or what he doesn't need to do based on individual opinions. There are questions in here that I would have a hard time answering because I don't work with him as closely as, say, some of the staff.
If you had that problem, then it would just be you just go to the last page and you might outstanding. I mean, if that's how you felt, and that's how it would be.
And what
tabulated.
good does that do?
Well, well, what would you propose that we do for an evaluation?
I think
there's more to it than a strategic plan.
No, not in my opinion. There isn't more to it than a strategic plan. In his case,
there's a budget.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
part of that strategic plan is staying on budget and staying within the budget, and there's parts of that strategic plan that deal with the budget. So, every month or every 3 months when we get a report of this or that, it's always based on how well he's doing. When he says, this is what I'm doing, and last meeting we got a complete listing on his self-evaluation was, this was the strategic plan. This is what I did. This is where we stand on that. This is where we're not on.
I would like to talk about that, but I'll talk about it during the strategic plan portion of it.
Well, that's okay. But we're talking about his.
We're just doing a way to evaluate the director. Have a policy in place to evaluate the director.
I understand, and my feeling is that we should evaluate the director based on his strategic plan and what we approved that he do, because that strategic plan is what we said he should do, and all this other stuff tends to not address that. And so it concerns me a great deal. So I would not be voting for this.
That's all right.
Ms. Booth, I hear what Mr. Nixdorf is saying. Is there a way to take the amount of effort that you've expended on your performance review recommendations to include comments that this follows the approved strategic plan? I mean, because when I look at the efforts that you've put into this, it has it's more thorough. It takes a look at well, for instance, the strategic plan doesn't talk about how the director interfaces with customers or vendors, whether it doesn't reflect timeliness or moodiness. The strategic plan is more of a vision that has detailed work items to be accomplished. And I think all of us know that Mr. Landry is certainly exceeding our expectations for accomplishments. I think what Ms. Booth's document does is it elaborates on the attitude as those accomplishments are being met or not met, for that matter. But that was my intention. And yet, in listening to Mr. Nixdorf's concerns, I'm just wondering if you could modify some of the...
Absolutely. That's what this is all about. What I really want to stress what this type of forum is in talking with the HR directors is, let's say we're saying he's doing a great job here. We get this back and we see that he has maybe one person is going to be negative. You're going to throw that out. But if you see somebody's exceeding, expectation, then you've got documentation here to raise him above the next step. Maybe we would want to take that director and move that director 2 steps up. Or maybe if there's all of it is negative here, we might want to say, you know, Mr. Landry, maybe we need to work on a few things here and maybe give him some education or some tools to work with to better improve. So this really is a place to start talking, because it's easy to sit there. You know, it's hard to sit there and say, this is what you're doing wrong. It's easy to say, this is what you're doing right. But this tool would allow you to talk about everything and give him some goals to improve. And this is what this type of forum is for. It's not a bashing tool. It's really a tool to sit down when we do his review, to be able to see how does the public think about him. When I say the public, I mean, how do the schools, how would they fill this out? Are they going to give him an excellent or an outstanding? And if that's the case, then absolutely, maybe we should be doing 2 steps up instead of 1 step up, because he's exceeded our expectations.
And so on, to elaborate on what Ms. Booth's saying, Mr. Nixdorf, is I see it as kind of like a check and a balance. The strategic plan is one guidance tool, and then this has kind of a balancing with that tool. It's not replacing the strategic plan. It just kind of works in conjunction with it. And I think if Ms. Booth indicated that maybe if she could pinpoint areas on the review that match the strategic plan, it just kind of creates a little bit more dialogue. And the example that I'm going to give is that I voted no to the annual review raise, and it's because when I go through some of what my feelings are, because it's based on feelings, I guess, and I don't have this tool. The tool that I did have was the strategic plan, and yes, I feel like you're meeting those, and yes, the weekly reports are extremely helpful, but I lack a tool like this that, for instance, when we were doing the interviewing process, we rated people according to a certain set of criteria, and every applicant received those ratings. And then if they didn't exceed a minimum standard of ratings, they were thrown right out. We never even considered those applicants for the job. You obviously exceeded all of those areas, and that's why you were hired. But when it came time for the review, I was kind of looking for, well, what tool do I have that enables me to do the same checklist? Where's my checklist? And yes, I could have gone through the strategic plan, but as you well know, 50 pages, it still lacked maybe a smaller, condensed version. And I really appreciated the amount of effort that Ms. Booth went in to do the review, because it gives me a little more isolated focus to then make a decision. And in this current situation on the last voting item, I really just did not have that tool available to me, unless I'm just overlooking it, unless you've provided it in some way and I've just overlooked it. I'm not sure.
I just like to share too, this tool right here is what the city manager of Boulder City, they evaluate him. The board there does the same thing. It's geared up. I tried to gear it up for us. Like I said, it's real easy to change. You just change whatever you want to change. You can take out a whole block if you want. But it's the same thing that the city council members would use to evaluate the city manager, so that it does give you that little, and that's all the more I was trying to do, because I think that we do need to have some policies in play. Because what I want to remind everyone too is when we went to hire someone, we had such a problem because there was no policy. And I want to say I'm so glad the medical board could use that policy, because I worked so hard on it. It made me feel really good. But I just think we as a board, that's our responsibility, as to have these guidelines in place. And because we are the board, we don't take those responsibilities, I think, on target as we should. Did you need to add something, Sarah?
I agree with kind of what Mr. Leader said. Oh, there he is, Mr. Leader. I think that this is really well really well executed. I'm very impressed by all the work you did.
Excellent work, Ms. Booth, by the way. Thank you.
Really well executed. But I too would like a more specific tool, really specific to the goals that are outlined in his strategic plan, that we could literally reflect upon a little. I know this is probably like a first draft, but something less general and more specific. The more specific we are, I think the better results that we would end up with.
I sat down and tried to do it by myself.
Well, this is amazing. You did amazing work.
That's where I need everybody's feedback, because that's where everybody should be involved in something like this, because we really should have a policy. We also should have a policy on termination. We should also have another policy on how, when we give him, to let the board members know this is what we're going to talk about, and give him clear guidelines, because I think as a board we really have failed in giving Mr. Landry some clear guidelines. And that's in another part of our meeting. I'd like to talk about that. So I feel part of it is because we don't have those clear guidelines like he does for staff. So that they know when they come in what they're supposed to be doing. So this is for the future, not just for today, but for the future. So that's, yes, sir. He's got the finger
Mr.
going.
Nexdorf.
All right, two things.
Yes, sir.
One, I think that what you want is a good thing, right? And I think that belongs in a subcommittee. And I think that that's what a subcommittee is for. And I think that we could establish a subcommittee. I think that would be a great idea for 3 or 4 of us to get together, hash it out, and come to the board with something that was hashed out instead of trying to hash it out.
And have
in front
the
of the board.
questions in it that you guys would like to see asked.
Correct.
I'd like to see everybody look at it, and even if you only had 2 or 3 people that were on the subcommittee, that everybody would give some feedback of the questions that they would like to see.
Okay, so that's number one. So I think those items you listed out just a second ago is a subcommittee's job, and we should create a subcommittee for it. It's all good. Number 2, as far as critique and feedback, all right, I believe, addressing April's point, the more specific, the better it would be. I think that to some degree what we're addressing here is that we have one point of view as to whether or not Mr. Landry is doing a good job, and that's his point of view plus what we all feel. All right, because he's self-evaluating. Yeah. Correct?
Correct.
And while we believe Mr. Landry, maybe
he has a bit of a vested interest in us believing him.
He does. Maybe we shouldn't believe him.
Well, that's why we need this for the future.
Hold on, Cookie. Let me finish, please, please. I know. So by way of by way of feedback on an item such as this, right? I would be very inclined to perhaps have that board member that you were talking about doing the evaluation actually take his self-evaluation and verify that self-evaluation and do an investigation of the strategic plan and his goals as he's laid out, because we've required him to provide us with those goals because we aren't there. It's not. That's what we hire.
Supply the goals.
No, not necessarily, because he is hired to do that stuff. We aren't the experts on this. We're a board to make sure that the laws get implemented.
We're here to protect the public and the rule of law.
Right. But the office work and where that goals go and so on and so forth, we specifically abdicate and defer that to him and allow him to do that. Then he brings us the strategic plan and says, okay, I've evaluated the office and this is what I think needs to be done, because we've directed him to do that. He comes back and says, here's the plan. And we go, we like it. Sounds good to me, right? And now, next year, he comes back and says, look at all the work I've done on the plan. It's been a great year. And we go, well, if you say so. But as far as this kind of a policy is concerned, I would be inclined to have someone do an investigation on his self-evaluation and actually look into it and have him do him or her do a thorough evaluation of his evaluation and fact check it for all intents and purposes. I don't believe that the schools or other people have enough information to to evaluate him as far as his job performance is concerned. Nor do I think they have the willingness to sit down with a piece of paper. Last meeting, for instance, we got lots of feedback from the schools when I said, I don't think so, we're not paying them. We're not giving them a raise. And everybody comes up and says, well, wait a second here, right? That feedback comes to us pretty readily.
Counteracted yourself. I mean,
well, that's okay. We heard
think they
them.
would.
We didn't have to send something like this out to them. It comes to us. But what doesn't come to us is a fact check of his.
And what doesn't come to us are the employees. How do they see Mr. Landry? Is he running a good team back there?
Yeah, that could be handled with a fact checking investigation of his evaluation or something like that, so that he has some credibility. Anyway, I'm not saying that that's what it would be. I'm just saying that as far as feedback is concerned, I'd be much more inclined to go with something that's specific, that we can say, okay, here's the goals you said you were going to create. Did you actually do that? Are you telling us the truth? And
I'm willing to go along with you. I would
be
like everybody's feedback. So I think that's a great idea that we do that, and I can actually email this to everybody, and you can make your changes, and whoever does the chairing is on the committee.
So long as it's blind copy, because more than 4 people's a quorum.
Okay.
That's why we would have a subcommittee meeting, and that would be the way to do this.
But I'm just saying I can send this to everybody so that they can look at it and rewrite what they want to rewrite.
Have staff send it out.
Yeah, I'll send it to them.
I vehemently oppose that idea. That it gets sent out and everybody does that. I'm all about having a subcommittee, and the subcommittee does this. That's their job, to do this kind of stuff for the board.
Mr. Leader.
To have a copy, Perry.
I just wanted to further elaborate on my comments that, again, I really appreciate you putting together a performance review. And I think what Mr. Nixdorf is also indicating is that there still would be a policy in place. So what it is that you're asking still requires some type of performance review of policy. But I also wanted to kind of get back that even as we've been discussing, I've kind of gone through, and more often than not, Mr. Landry receives an excellent rating just on this draft that you've given us. There's 1 or 2 above averages, and yet I just voted down your raise retroactive to your annual hire date. And that is because based on, again, why? Why am I going retroactively? Why would I make a vote that this is the meeting that we authorized the discussion and voting for an annual raise, and yet we did make the raise retroactive, and I really lack an appropriate tool to give me the guidelines that warrant the vote that just, I think it was passed with just my single dissension, and
actually Mr. Nixdorf
or so too, and I'm not sure Mr. Nixdorf's rationale for denying that, but mine was just, I don't have a tool that says that the retroactive is what is an essential means to your employee. I mean, I answered it on the draft, but this isn't necessarily the tool that was provided in the prior agenda item discussion.
And thank you, because that's one of the main goals that I thought too, is I had the same feeling. I have no tools, and I go reading through what I'm supposed to be doing, and my job as a board member is to set policy up. And not having a tool is not fair to Mr. Landry, because maybe we're not quite aware of everything that he's done. And I think sometimes by sending him out to the schools, they can say he's been an excellent resource and give him those kudos that he needs. Or if we get one back saying, he never returns a call, then we know that we have a problem that we weren't aware of. And so there again, it's giving us those tools to be able to evaluate, not Mr. Landry, but somebody in the future too.
So what you're saying is we need a policy in place for a tool, which is great. I think it should be mostly based on efficacy, less on attitude. I mean, it's not all Ferris wheels and funnel cakes. I'm sorry, it just isn't. Secondly,
Why not?
We don't get calls at night. Okay, we're not kept up. We're not kept after work. We're not constantly. So the proof is in the pudding. We've hired a man that does his job. We don't have to micromanage him. We don't have to hold his hand. We tell him what to do. He does his job. I mean, that's the proof that is enough proof for me at this point. So looking back, that's why I thought that this man needed a raise. And if we lose him, I have to see you on a dark alley somewhere. But secondly, secondly, no threats involved there. Secondly,
are you threatening me?
Absolutely, we need to have something like this in place. This is really great. We definitely need tools, but let's simplify it. Let's work with a strategic plan. That's, give us a bullet point. Well, we'll work off of that, something like that, and minimal on attitude. It needs to be logical and less emotional. And as far as involving the staff, great to a point, because, if you listen, everybody's going to say something negative. And really, if it's not pertaining to helping him move forward in his position, and unless it's something that's really detrimental that we have to address, why are we adding more regulation and laws and not laws and policies that don't need to exist? So let's keep it simple.
When you're doing something like this, you throw out the bottom. If you had one bad complaint, that's just that person.
Right, you're looking for average evaluations,
Yes,
not
you're
the
looking for an
horrible,
average,
not the sunshine
Yes.
flies
I
out
think
of
we're in agreement
wherever.
with that.
But real quickly, just to speak to Mr. Nixdorf's point, more for devil advocacy than anything else. Part of what he was saying was that the strategic plan does allow for that, not micromanaging.
Yes.
So, but I agree also that a tool to give more specific data would be good to speak to both points, I guess.
Okay, so can I make a motion to move forward with a subcommittee on creating an evaluation policy?
I think that would be great.
That would actually be a future agenda item we'd have to do because it's not agendized here.
Okay.
So at the end of the meeting?
We got a comment over here.
I mean, it's for possible action. Can we?
For possible action, I think the direction could be either implementation or you could take action. That would be a Sarah question, but I believe you can actually form the subcommittee.
Miss Bradley? You don't think so?
It just says proposed executive director evaluation policy for possible action. So I mean, the way I read it is it's to accept or not a draft policy of some sort. Creating a subcommittee, I would want to see probably more specifically on the agenda, to create, and I'm sorry for that, but.
Then what I'd like to do is, if you're are you withdrawing in the motion? Since it can't be.
It can't be completed.
So I'd like
apparently.
to make a motion that we accept the evaluation policy as proposed by Ms. Booth, with the understanding that she's going to continue to work on it
and take it to committee.
And by listening to some of the suggestions that were made today. And then on the next agenda, they could form the agenda item for possible subcommittee formation.
I believe under the close of the meeting today, there'll be a proposal for a future agenda item with just that specificity.
And so for me, in order for Ms. Booth to take into account the recommendations that were said by the other board members, I would like my motion to reflect that we approve this proposed evaluation policy with the understanding that it is still in a draft and that it is still going to be worked on by Ms. Booth.
I want Perry to chair the committee.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yes, a second.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion?
I don't think we should approve this under any circumstances. I think it's great and it's thought-provoking and that it will initiate further action and that we will take the work that she's done and do something with it. But to approve this indicates that we would then also enforce it and it has the power to be done.
Well, I believe
even if he said that it's with the thing that it's going to be worked on and so on and so it's stipulated. No, you either approve it or you don't. And my feeling is that I would like to see that subcommittee formed next meeting. I would be happy to chair that, just so that you know.
Okay.
I have no problem with that whatsoever, because I like this stuff. I just don't like this in particular, but the concept.
Well, that will reflect in your vote, Mr. Nixdorf.
Yes, it will.
Okay. Any further?
It's in yours, too.
Yes. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that vote now. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Booth.
Thank you, everybody. Look forward to working with you, Perry.
And, you know, just as a matter of formality, Mr. President, Mr. Nixdorf does make a very interesting argument, and I really appreciate you adding your final comments. That means it's very thought-provoking.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Landry, item number 17.
If you wish to take it now, that's great. If you want to take a lunch break, that's great. I just want to make sure that I'm keeping consistent.
You know, I'm of the opinion that we should power through this. We don't have a whole lot left. We have this workshop situation, the handbook, and then the election shouldn't take very long, and we have your executive director's report, and I think that's about wrapping it up. So unless anybody is... Okay, well, let's do a 10-minute break then, and then we'll power through. Okay? All right. So 10 minutes. It is 11:47. See you back here in 10.
violation to have it in this law, it's a violation to use it.
Right. Which is the
So
part
all
that's
they can do is
stupid,
say,
yeah.
what are you doing with this?
Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order at 11:57. Nevada State Board of Cosmetology. All right, Mr. Landry, if you want to step over there in front of us, we got a couple different things to go through. We moved the director's report to agenda item number 18. So why don't we start with that?
Are we on 17? We're on 17 workshop.
Oh, my bad. Agenda item 17, request for authorization of the executive director to hold workshops and schedule public hearings on proposed changes to Nevada Administrative Code. Mr. Landry.
Certainly. A couple of things. One is this is nothing that's going to happen immediately because it can't. The legislative session is going into session, and the ability to get the LCB to look at this is going to be limited because they're looking at laws. They're a very busy job during this time frame. But what we can do, I want to take this what I'd consider off time on NAC, is getting some workshops going. We get through the process and go through it. And so the things that I've proposed are three different items. One is that we put some sort of timing into the sanitation violations currently. If you had a dirty nail file, you're cited for it. 10 years later, you have another dirty nail file, you're cited for it. We can't issue you a citation. We must bring you before the board, and they have to sit and go through the complaint process. What I'd like to do is, as far as the first proposal, is get some feedback from the licensees. Obviously, that's what the workshops are for. But the proposal would be to put some sort of time constraint or allow minor sanitation violations to be $100 for the first and subsequent. And if we see something that's egregious, like we've done in the past, we don't have to issue a $100 citation on sanitation. If we see something that's egregious and it's a sanitation violation, we can cite them without a fine and bring them before the board at the very next board meeting. We can call an emergency board meeting. I mean, the inspectors take their job very seriously. If they think that there's something that the public can be harmed, they always have the ability to not give them a fine, just cite them, and then we can bring them before the board immediately. We don't have, the first citation does not have to be $100 because it wouldn't be just sanitation. There'd be a whole host of other gross malpractice things that they're doing that we could bring them before the board on. So again, what I'm trying to do is not have incidental or minor sanitation violations taking up your time as a board member. I think of the board in terms of you're kind of like the Supreme Court. You're not going to hear traffic tickets, and that's basically what I consider. Some of these sanitation violations where it was a sanitation violation 10 years ago, they get another violation 10 years later. I don't think that's worthy of your time to be talking to that individual about what they should do. They know what they have to do. They will just be cited and go on from there. So that's the first.
So streamlining. Just making sure that you're hearing the serious stuff and you're not hearing the mundane, the things that we do every day. That's what staff is there for, and that's what I'm there for. You don't work at this every day, and you shouldn't have to. And so that's the first suggestion. The second suggestion is the white garments that the students are required to wear when they're testing. Probably the number one complaint from the students. They basically buy the white garment or rent the white garment for the day and then throw it away afterwards. So I think it's an unnecessary and undue expense. They're not required to wear it when they practice. They're not required to wear it when they go to school. There's only one time in their life that they're required to wear this white garment, when they go for the practical exam at the board office. Why is it a law?
Laws were created in 1931. I'm sure at the time when they were looking at it, the cosmetology profession was a lot more. Some practitioners were probably in white, looking like medical
facility staff, so
exactly.
forth. Yeah, gotcha.
Mr. Landry,
yes.
How do you intend to differentiate the tester from the model or just ambient folks walking around?
We don't have ambient folks walking around, just so you know. When they come in, they're checked in, they're seated at their station. They have to provide photo identification. We have a check-in sheet that tells us exactly who they are and why they're there for testing. The raters are known quantities to us. They're trained in advance and must be certified by NIC that they're acceptable raters, that they have all the qualifications to be that. So it's not a confusing atmosphere when you're talking about testing. It's a very controlled. We have cameras going on full time. the entire time all testing is going on, which we have used occasionally in the not too recent past, to identify people that may not be following the rules, basically.
And Mr. Landry, I mean, to make a comparison, as you did in your item number 1 with the traffic violations in front of the Supreme Court, what about to make a comparison that people wear school uniforms just simply through K through 12, and so essentially they have to discard those school uniforms once they matriculate into another school? What are you going to intend to do about any maybe gang affiliation wear or having written things on your clothing to minimize the risk that somebody has written test score answers on their garments?
Actually, can I add to that real quick? Even if they, because technically they're still a student when they're taking the test, if they wear their student uniform, if they're at Euphoria, I know they have the black and black that's written says Euphoria, they could wear their student uniform. And I know a lot of them allow to wear their regular clothes on the floor or whatnot, but if they would just wear their student uniform or their student smock on the day of the test, that may help differentiate and have it possibly buttoned up if, it's like no, they say, no tank tops, no this, no that. They're going into a profession. They should be dressed professionally.
They're going to be required. What my proposal is, we take the exact same law that's required of you as a practitioner, as licensee. That will be what they're going to be required to wear. That they would have to have. They would follow that. I took the exact same language from a licensee, applied it to a student, and so that's what they would have. So they would not be able to wear flip-flops and things that that they're not allowed to wear. They would have to wear what the law says now is adequate shoes or adequate footwear. That's a bit broad, and we're gonna take and come up with a whole list of pictures of shoes that are adequate, pictures of shoes that are not adequate, so that there's no discrepancy on that. The real effort behind this is to keep them from buying a particular type of clothing for one day. It's unnecessary. It's a financial burden to them. I mean, they've already paid pretty substantially to get through school, to get to where they are. They've paid their testing fees, and now for this one day in their life, they're going to wear this all-white uniform.
Mr. Landry, I just really have to respectfully disagree with you. I think the reason for the white is to identify the tester and to ensure that there aren't any other things written that could help betray the test. It's in the practical. I also feel that now you're just creating a whole list of things that people can and can't wear, and that list is going to be changing all the time. And then the reality of it is they know that they're going to have to wear white when that test day comes. So why don't they just pre-purchase or just plan to wear some white pants with a white shirt at another time?
I disagree with your logic, but I accept your viewpoint. I don't think it's the board's intent to cause any person to buy something for one day for one practical exam. It's not even, we don't have that requirement for the theory and the law. It's only for the practical. It is a one day, and I shouldn't even say a day. So for 3 hours out of their life, one test use and gone. It's very different from a school uniform that you wear K through 12 that you wear year round. I can accept Miss Long's suggestion on wearing their uniforms that they wear at school. That would be one way of making it easy on us. We were trying to make it as broad as possible so that we would treat them just like a licensee. They are one exam at the point of practical. They're one exam away from working in the salons as a licensee.
That might even be a great thing for the schools to do, is get however many things that says exam on it, and they can rent it from the school at that time. That's something that we want to put on make the school's responsibility, so they don't have to do it. It's part of their tuition that
anything to get it. I'm telling
suggestion.
You, when you go to the schools and you speak with the students, that is one of the sorest points that they have. They feel it's not only is it antiquated, it's excessive. It's something that the board is doing to us, not because they see no legitimate reason. No, whatever board passed this back in the 1930s is the one that did it, and that's again the only reason for the change is speaking to the legislators, like when I go before LCB, because we propose something and it goes through a workshop, and you approve it, it's not approved. Right. It goes before LCB. I go before an LCB committee and have to justify every expense that goes on. In particular, in these days where it's a tight economic condition, everything that causes an additional expense is looked at very carefully. And what we're trying to do, this particular proposal is to reduce an expense to the student. Yes, go.
I have just one thing here. If you put clean, appropriate outer garments, then that way if somebody walked in with test questions or they had some sexual thing on the front of it, that's not appropriate for taking a test. So just maybe by adding the word appropriate garment in there would solve a lot of problems that I'm hearing.
I think it's complicating everything. I think it just keeping it simple. Because I have employees that work for me, and we even have to wear underwear in the manual. I think that it's important to know that people always hit the extreme, and if we can mandate a certain simple outfit for these people, collared shirt, plain color, pants, plain color, shoes, plain color, whatever it is, but I don't see a problem with it. I mean, what's the problem with buying white or having? I'm so confused on why they don't have white.
They will. Most of them say they have never worn white in their life, and they never will. I will tell you. Again, it's not my complaint. This is the complaint when I go to the schools.
You know what I think as a school person, I would think, just in being a public member, you're dyeing people's hair. They're just beginning. They're going to be wearing darker pants or stuff like that. To me, I don't see we should be judging what kind of clothes that they need to wear to take one test. I just think if it's appropriate clothes, throw your clothes on. If they're clean and appropriate, your boobs aren't hanging out.
I'm telling you, appropriate is a vague term.
Okay, so we're a little off topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
The agenda item before the board, you have one more point to make, yes?
No, I have one more thing that we'll be talking about that the board has already approved, but just want to say we're not talking about crafting it here. This is only saying you go and do a workshop.
Subcommittees, yeah.
Get the feedback from the public, bring it to the board. At that time, you would be looking at what the workshops came up with, what all the suggestions were from the public, and then you at that time would either vote for it, vote against it, or to make modifications to it.
Mr. Leader.
I just wanted to add, that this law that we're referring to, it's the NAC 644053.8, and it was added in 86, and then it was revised and reviewed in 98, 99, 02, and 06.
Not that specific passage. That's that entire section.
But I mean, I'm just trying to let you know that section was never removed after all of those revisions. So this doesn't go back to the 30s. It goes back just as like 8 years ago, where it potentially could have been revised but wasn't.
No, it was not revised at that time. It was put in that was one of the original provisions, because I've done the research on it. It was one of the original provisions. It has never been changed. So it's been left alone and not changed. It hasn't actively been reviewed or modified. Usually when you modify, an NAC, you'll modify a specific section, not the entire thing. Although you will see in this next coming year, we're going to probably take a look at NAC top to bottom, because there are many conflicts, things that cause confusion in the licensed community that need to be cleared up.
Okay. Any further questions of the executive director? Okay, I'll entertain that motion then.
Number 3, though.
The last one is, you had approved it before. I just wanted to make sure you knew that we didn't forget about it. Reducing the retake fee from 110 to 75. That was previously approved at another board meeting, and they were lumping these all together to have one workshop to cover all 3 topics.
I think I voted against that at that previous meeting, and I'm still not very supportive in the reducing of that licensing retake fee. And in fact, I'm going to be bringing that up to your attention when we look at the testing summary. Mm-hmm. I'm not supportive of a re-examination, a reduction in fees at all. Particularly when you look at the statistics on the testing summary.
So the workshops will be properly notified and
be public. It'll be a public meeting, properly notified. We're going to have all of it done in both locations simultaneously for every workshop that we do. Yes.
Similarly to what we're doing here.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion that we direct Mr. Landry to begin the process of workshops to revise the NACs, to include the ones he's brought forward, plus many more that I'm sure we'll come up with.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second before the board, any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Bless you. That motion carries. Okay. The executive director's report.
I'm open to answer any questions. And one thing I'd like to do, if this is something, to streamline the meeting, if the executive director's report should be left outside of the consent agenda, I'm fine with that. I just want to, whatever we put on the consent, because it's never gone through the consent agenda. So if that's the case, I'll just take it out of the consent agenda and leave only the I forget what the other part of the consent agenda is.
At this point in time, you're good, because all we've pulled out is the year-to-date testing summary and the fiscal 2014 finance report. So it's quite specific today.
Okay.
I like your executive director being included in the consent agenda because it's a summary of what we've received in your weekly reports.
And I'd like to I don't know if this is the proper time to make the comment. I'd like to see it moved to the back of the packet. We always move it there anyways, and I think that if we could start putting it before us or our comments, but putting it towards the back of the package.
Generally, we're moving it for the purposes of the lawyer that we have present for the trial portion of the board meeting.
That's
So
why.
yeah, the last half or however we want to.
Wherever you,
we tend to move it somewhere in the teens anyway, so
Yes.
it just makes it easier to put it there.
I had pulled the testing summary because I wanted to highlight to the other board members in that year-to-date summary that nearly 35%, we have a 35% fail rate. So we had total passing of 2,400 some odd folks. Total tests were 3,300, but we had 874 fails. So, I mean, somebody can do the math on that, but as soon as you reduce that testing fee, you're going to, with 874 fails year to date, I mean, you can do, again, a simple math. That's going to be 1,700 fails for the year. If you reduce the fee by $35, I mean, you're going to watch the balance in our bank account plummet by, Andrew could correct me if I'm mistaken, but it's going to plummet by about $73,000 in just examination fees alone. And it is the Nevada law test, and I think that Gloria could attest to that it's the Nevada law test that these folks aren't passing.
Correct.
The fail rate is associated to Nevada law. So now you're going to reward them. You're going to reward people who fail by reducing the re-examination fee. I just think that that's foolish. The whole point of being licensed to protect the public is to pass that test the first time around.
I did the same numbers, Alex, and just on the law test fails alone, and I just did it for the South, is a loss. If we cut that, I mean, it would come out to $60,500. That's all just in law test.
That's
just in Vegas?
That's just in the South, yes.
Yeah. And that's the revenue side of it. On the cost side of it, we wouldn't be paying PSI for the download of those tests to as an offset to that. So it's that entire amount doesn't go away.
Well, there's a fair portion that we pay to Nick for each additional test as well, too, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So those checks that we're writing and signing don't happen as well. So it's the expense and the cost as well.
Right.
But also the main concern I really had, not just with the reducing of the funds, was that the instructor, the instructor fails here, the instructor theory, were 30%. I mean, I'm wondering why these people are failing, and when we're having an instructor failing of 30%. So that was a concern too. And
somebody passing or failing a test is not the purview of the board. That's not on us.
I understand it's not, but the point that I'm making is that if these instructors are failing a test and then just eking by with a pass, let's just, grant me this here, eking by with a test and then going and teaching these people, I'm wondering, it's no surprise that we have such a high fail rate. So that's a concern as well for the schools. That's not enough.
And then
that's for
Ms.
the
Long, the argument is that it's minimum standards that earn you the license.
Correct.
So, I mean, I did want to ask Andrew,
and that was theory.
is...
That was theory. I'm sorry. Let me just say
Correct.
that was theory. It's 26% fail on theory for nail technologists, 17% on estheticians, 0 fails on hair braiders. 0 with all the people complaining about hair braiders.
What do we have, like 3 in the state or something?
Matter.
Like
It's
6?
like, it doesn't matter, 8, 18, whatever they had here.
18?
Whatever it was.
Sorry, 18.
Whatever it was, 0 fails. 0.
I did want to ask Andrew what the financial impact of that is. And then I also want to remind the board that there was a cost associated to the development of the Nevada Law Test that we don't see reflected in this year's budget. The Nevada Law Test took hours and hours of staff time, and it's going to take hours and hours of staff time to keep that test up to date and modernized, particularly if we have legislative changes during this 2015 cycle. That Nevada Law Test may in fact have to be modified or upgraded. Mr. Landry spoke to the fact that there was a question on the Nevada Law Test that had an ambiguous result, and so he's already had to spend time and effort of his time as well as staff time, and you guys are paying him more now. Plus, you're paying him retroactively. So to reduce the cost, and I'm going to defer to Andrew, what is the cost analysis of having the retake examination fee reduced?
Mr. Leader, I'd actually have to look into that. I have to perform the calculations, then offset that with the PSI expense. I could prepare that for you. I don't have those numbers right now, if that's something that you'd like.
Well, just generally speaking, I mean, I calculated it out at about $73,000 just in year one. And then if you continued on this high rate of fails, I mean, logic tells you that it's going to be exponentially greater year after year after year.
Without the numbers in front of me, I can rest assure you that the agency is healthy financially. So I'm not too concerned with it. That's why I didn't do the calculations right now. But I can say with good faith that the agency is healthy financially.
And I agree with you. Thank you.
One thing to also consider. I mean, this is something. Not that you can't change your mind. You're very valid to change your mind. This is something that was passed at a previous meeting because of a complaint by a student who was saying that the undue hardship, and the board voted for it. Not Mr. Leader, but the board did vote for it. But you can change your mind at any time. You can pull any one of these out, or you can let them all go to workshop. You can then either accept it, because they're not going to be going as a package. Each one will be reviewed one by one at the public hearing to say whether you want to approve all of them or some of them. The only thing that I would say is part of the strategic plan is that we get 100% first-time passage by all students. So, again, having the financial impact, that's what we're working towards. There will be a financial impact when all students pass the first time around. We're working on that just so the board understands. We are taking people who have failed multiple times, and we're investigating why. That investigation has had 10 students who previously failed at least 3 times. 9 of them have passed now, because we're working with them individually to make sure that that's not the only stumbling block between them and licensure, is the understanding of the Nevada law. And not just understanding, it's really, in 100% of the cases, it's a language barrier, just to be honest. So that we're working for, to make sure we're the board that's most proactive in trying to get people to work. And that's our job. That's the objectives you set out for me when you accepted the strategic plan.
I was concerned where those fails were kind of coming from. I mean, were they coming from the schools? Were they coming from the transfers? Were they coming from the loss of schools and misplaced students? So, there could be...
The fail rate has been pretty consistent all throughout. I mean, if you look at the fail rates month to month, they're pretty consistent. But that's one of the things that we're looking at, addressing, is that to find out what is it that's causing that. And one thing we're not going to do is we're not changing students' ambition. I don't think it's the students' ambition. Many times these are not young students. Some of the ones that we're helping are not young students. They're people trying to get into the profession. We've always been very pro-business and very much trying to help anyone who wants to get a license legally and can pass the test. We want to license them.
So, Mr. Landry, to address Mr. Leader's concerns, during the workshop, would you please be sure to have any financial impact statements ready on any of the items that you anticipate we'll be talking about, so that we can address those?
And to further that, and I really appreciate that, Mr. Nixdorf, is because when we have 100% compliance, that is a slow trickle out of our budget, getting up to 100% compliance. So it will go from, I think, 78% is where we're at right now, to then 79 to 80 to 81. So we won't see that dramatic impact in the reduction in our budget. And yes, I agree with Andrew when he indicates that it is a financially sound board, but I also think it's also going to be a double whammy if you try to incrementally increase to 100% compliance as well as take a reduction in the reexamination fees. As far as the language barriers go, Nevada writes its laws in English, and the Nevada law test is based on the understanding of an English written law. It is very important that we all take into account that being multilingual is certainly an admirable characteristic, but the comprehension of the law does require English.
And we're not changing that. What I said is we're taking steps and finding ways that we can see what the problems are, and we've been very successful to date. And I would tell you one of the things to look for in my report next year when you do my evaluation is look at the pass-fail rates and see if there's been an improvement. Even though that's not directly applicable to my job, it is part of the strategic plan.
Ms. Booth, perhaps that should be part of your evaluation. Okay, so let's look for a motion then.
No, there's.
Sorry.
I don't think there's
a discussion.
No
I think,
motion.
unless there's a motion to be made.
Discussion, right?
Well, especially if we're going to specify certain parts, Mr. Leader sounded like he wanted to take away the reduction of fee.
Well, no, I mean, I would definitely, we've already approved that to move forward into the workshop. So I'm just reestablishing my dissent from a prior meeting, and I'm just trying to vocalize it to see if I can, change the other 6 members' minds.
Well, it's definitely gotten my attention with regards to that, so.
So, Mr. Leader, you also had the finance report pulled. What was it that was on that?
I did. Thank you. I did want to point out, and again, Andrew, I wanted to also go back and thank you again for your military service. It was nice that Mr. Landry brought up the fact that we are moving forward with hiring veterans. So congratulations. I really appreciate that. In taking a look at the finance report, I'm kind of noticing that there's these wildly disparate net asset changes from the budget to the actual. So are we missing an employee? Is that taking into account that there's a vacancy in like the inspection department in Reno or something? What is that wildly disparate change in budget versus actual?
Mr. Leader, as with all budgets, it's merely a guideline for the actual. I think one of my goals for next year is going to really hone in on the budget and find out what's causing those swings. This is going back all the way to the beginning of the fiscal year, July, and I'd really like to narrow that down myself. I can tell you that there are a lot of operational changes, staffing, technology upgrades, things of that sort. And again, the budget is just a guideline, but it's something I want to look into as well.
And then I'm noticing when we look at the year-to-date that, we are continuing to operate in the hole. We're using money that has been sitting in savings, and I advised all of the board members when you approved the budget last year that you were approving a deficit budget. And lo and behold, while the figures are slightly improved to what they were on the approved budget, we are still taking money from our reserves. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
And so what is the explanation for that?
The explanation for
having a negative.
Looking at your net asset changes. Yeah. The net asset change and what reflects in all the budgets that you get is a depreciation number. That depreciation number is cash you've already spent. What you're talking about, Alex,
depreciation of hard tools, computers,
computers,
keyboards, adding machines,
the
phones.
software, the Versa software, all of that's included in the depreciation schedule. That's money you already spent. What you're talking about is a cash flow analysis, and we can provide that. That's not what this instrument is. This is a financial analysis, and it will include things like depreciation. That's why you're in the negative. We have been cash flow positive every month since I've been here. We're going to continue to be cash flow positive. The negatives that you have, if you want to think of it, it's sins of the past. It's money that you've spent already that we now have to depreciate over time.
And I think that would really help if they had that, because I know even for my little bit of accounting that I do with clients, when you've got the depreciation in there, it's a whole different ball game. Right. So I think that would be something wonderful to be added so we could really see what we're doing without the depreciation.
We can give you a cash balance statement that shows you the balance of money in and money out and what we've done year to date. And that, because we're actually now talking about having to get another CD because we're exceeding the value of the CDs that are insured. So if it gets, we're by law, we cannot exceed the FDIC requirements of that, so we have to purchase another CD. So that's, to Andrew's point, the statement that we're drawing from savings is absolutely incorrect.
So correct me if I'm wrong as well. Currently, we directed you last time to spend more money because we put all those technological improvements in, and that's going to expense out some of those things that were being depreciated, right? So they're coming right off the top, and that's going to create a pretty big swing at that moment in time.
And Andrew's
as we accumulate larger dollar amounts and expense the stuff that's already been somewhat depreciated.
Correct. And Andrew's actually looking into what we can do from a depreciation schedule and showing that and what we're legally able to do as far as extending it as far as we can, because we will still have a useful life using it as a research tool, being able to look up things that, like when we go to the new system, you want to be able to have access to your old records and your old data. So we will have we may be able to continue depreciating it for some time. That's something we're going to look at. Just so you'll know, the new software is an expensable item because it's a month-to-month. We don't pay anything up front. It's all on a month-to-month expense, which is not only easier from an accounting standpoint, but from an operations standpoint, it allows us to change a vendor in an instant. As far as, if we want a new vendor, the contract is over. It's a month-to-month, and that's through the WSCA contracts, which are all pre-negotiated by the Western states. I can't remember what WSCA stands for. Western States something Alliance. The C is, I don't know, whatever the C stands for. But anyway, it's pre-arranged so that all of the Western states have gotten together. California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Washington State, Oregon, Montana, and I think Wyoming are all part of the WSCA. They go in and negotiate saying, we're really big as a group. We want the best rate. And basically, we take advantage of that.
Also, if there is a question about budgets or things like that, I know that we're going through an audit right now, and I did get a phone call from Jackie from our auditor, company, yes, right. Auditor, and there is something called an exit meeting after the whole audit is done, and that is an open forum for anybody on the board who has a question about any kind of thing that is being audited to just email me your question, and I will pass that on to Jackie because she'll be calling me at that time. Either I'll be in on the exit interview, or I'll be on the phone with it, or she'll send me the transcripts, or she'll contact me before if I can't make it down to that meeting. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to pass those along to her if anybody has inquiries about that.
But I am to understand that you're going to modify this report for the subsequent meetings?
For most boards, and what I would recommend for this board, you're going to continue to get the compiled financial statements. You're going to get a financial report that we keep, which is just a summary of the finance statements. But in addition to that, we can prepare a cash balance. It'll be very high level. It'll just basically say, we took in this much money, we spent this much money, we've either increased or decreased the amount of money, cash, that we have.
Ms. Blasco provided us something like that in the meeting before last or something like that, and it was done in a graphical format, and I like that real well. So rather than numbers, if you could graph it out, that worked out super well for me.
We'll provide both. We'll have the numbers and the graph. It's no problem. No, and anything that the board ever wants to know from a financial standpoint, we are very open. And again, there are 8 other finance professionals that look at this at the state level that are looking to make sure that everything we're doing is in compliance with the law.
Transparency.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So that's the executive director's report. Okay. Where are we at? We already did the evaluation process. Yeah. Agenda item 19, election of officers.
Well, no, we didn't go over the.
Employee handbook.
We didn't talk about the.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's out of line with the one piece of paper and then.
Yeah, because it was kind of 18. Pre-18.
Yes.
The 18 is actually the employee handbook. And the only thing on the employee handbook, it came up for the board last time you approved the career planning and the training. What we're asking is just to approve the entire employee handbook. The Attorney General's office has not been able to review it as of this date for at-will employment. That's the only provision that was talked about last meeting. What I would ask is to get approval of it, because then I can then share it with the employees and move forward with it. If there's any at-will section that's found to be not in compliance, then we can bring that up at that time. But and I would defer to Sarah if there's any vehement complaints. But it's basically the combination of what we had last time and the state employee handbook being combined. So
Yeah, I do too. In fact, can I pass this out to everybody? When I went through it, I really was interested in board's responsibilities. So again, I'm writing. So I kind of tried to outline it, and I gave a copy to Gary, and if maybe you guys could look at it, and if you'll just pass this way, because I just wanted it to be so that I understood it better, and that it was more related to a board member. So one of the other things that I wanted to say about what's the name of it? The manual, the employee manual. I really feel like I didn't have time to really read it, and I saw some things in there that I really were bothersome to me. And one was an organizational current chart. I love that, but a future chart. But I didn't know why we were adding people onto the top without having a discussion on that, or maybe we had a discussion and I wasn't there. The other one,
the chart part of it, you approved when you approved the career planning and the training. And and again, the way the board staff is organized is really out of the purview of the board, because you're not involved in the day-to-day operations. You tell me to get something done, and I organize it the way it's needed to be able to get things done. So that was the discussion
so
we had last time.
So to add a deputy executive director, we wouldn't have any part of that?
Nope.
Okay.
Koki, before you move on from that chart, I wasn't sure where the raters ended up.
They're not employees; they're independent contractors, and they would not. I don't want to give any semblance in an employee handbook that they would be an employee. They are not, and they are independent contractors, and we wish for them to remain that way.
So on the current organizational chart, they've been listed, but on the future organizational chart, where they don't even go on the
They're not
chart?
employees.
Correct. They're not employees. I was showing you that to show historically what's done. I think that's not that it's dangerous. I don't think we want to have anything that would imply that they're employees of the board, because they're not. And with our recent conversations with Dieter, I just want to make sure we're very clear that they're independent.
On who is and who is not an employee of the state board.
That would be one of the things you would bring up if a rater was terminated. They would say, "Look, I'm in the employee handbook. I'm a part of their current staff."
Okay. Something else that I wanted to bring up was the grade, that they're coming in at a certain grade. I'd like to see it a grade from here to here, because what if you had somebody that maybe was in the office, you wanted to move up, but maybe you're not going to move them right to that grade until they had some on-the-job training. So you're limiting.
The grade, just so you understand, Koki, on the grade, it's a grade step. Within each grade, there are 10 steps, and we're not required to bring them in at step 1. We can bring them in at a trial period. We can then move them up 2, 3, 4, however many steps I get approved in the budget. That's how fast they can move up. And we don't have to bring someone in as an admin analyst 1 if they have years of experience. We can, as long as there's budget. Again, the only time I look to do anything is if it falls within the budget. So if we have the budget approved to do that, and typically the hires that we do are pretty long range. We don't, there's very few times when we have an emergency hire. If we needed to, we certainly could.
So within that step, there's 10 different steps. Okay, I didn't understand that. The bachelor's degree on this, we brought that up.
On, I don't know which one you're
On
talking
the last meeting, we brought up about the bachelor's degree, and I brought up the fact that in Henderson, to be a Henderson police officer, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. Now, have you changed this so that they're not required to have it? If I'm not quite sure how I'm reading this.
I don't know what page you're on or what you're looking at. So.
On all of these, where they're asking for bachelor's degrees, especially your inspectors.
If you
came out of law enforcement, I would think you'd make a great inspector. But what if you didn't have a bachelor's degree?
If you look at, in particular, even up to the chief investigator, which is our highest inspector before chief inspector, it says bachelor's degree, and if you look at the end of that, in capital letters bolded, or, that means that any of the criteria below are equivalent. So a high school graduation or 2 years, if you have no high school degree, but you have 2 years as an inspector.
I just wanted to confirm that with you.
But that is a good question to ask, and it has been taken care of so that we have the latitude if we have a great candidate.
Right.
Because I can tell you, not every college graduate's a good candidate, and not every high school graduate or GED is a good candidate. When we find a good candidate, that's who we want to hire.
Right. One other question that would really help me in doing this, and on two things, and on the strategic plan, when you're telling me what's changed or what you've done, if you would redline it, because then I have to try. I could not read all of this in the time that I had, because by the time I read this package, but if it was redlined, then I would know what the changes were, and I could really concentrate on those areas of change because I've read this before. So every time I'm rereading everything, and I really would like to have more time to read this handbook because I didn't get all the way through it.
The only thing I'm going to say is you're playing with people's lives now. There are things in the new handbook that are to the benefit of the employees, and the longer you go without doing that, the less. Again, it's up your purview completely, but they're not all the things that were in the state handbook. We're not explicitly protected. The employees aren't protected. They don't have things about workplace hostility. There's a lot of things that were left out. So it's up to the board purview to delay it again to the next meeting. I'm perfectly fine with that. But if you do, I just want to make sure.
And we can make changes after we've passed it.
Absolutely.
I understand that.
You could bring it back after you pass it. You can bring it back and ask for modifications at every meeting if you wanted to.
Okay, so maybe that would be what I would be more comfortable with, is that we actually put it on the agenda to review it so that everybody here actually did review it, and any feedback that anybody had or any questions, we could actually bring them back to the next meeting. And if I'm the only one, then it'll be really quick. But I'm not opposed to approving it as long as that we look at it. What concerns me is that we pass it and then nobody looks at this handbook, and then we have passed something, and even Sarah hasn't had time to look at it. So
no, it's not Sarah. It's the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
Sarah does not handle.
Well, I just assume she's that.
Right, no.
So we haven't had that done since the last meeting. That was asked at the last meeting.
Right. So just so you know, again, I don't want to be confrontational, but the first time you saw this handbook in front of you was 6 months and 2 weeks ago. That was the time frame.
But we had some questions and we sent it back. And again, if it would have been redlined, it would have been easier for me to go over my list of things. Right. Now, because it wasn't done that way, I'm having to read all the way through. So that's what I'm saying. It would have really helped me to make sure that these things were done. So that's my problem.
But whatever motion the board is going to have is fine with me.
Mr. Leader.
I just wanted to double check two things. How did everybody switch from administrative assistant to administrative analyst? What is the difference?
The difference is to make it more succinct with where their jobs are now. In the past, it was basically clerical and typing. It's moved beyond that. Now we're doing a lot more with technology. So and they don't do everything just by rote, which used to be, when they had typewriters and all, they were basically an administrative assistant. They were like a secretary. That's not the case now. An analyst has to understand the law, the provisions of the law, when to apply it, when not to, what they can and can't do. So I think it's more descriptive and indicative of what they do today rather than what is. It's really just a nomenclature to bring it up with today's times.
And so I just wanted to double check on the administrative analyst number 1 in that job title. It's the second to the last page, Mr. Landry. But in the executive summary, it does say still that they are under the general supervision of an administrative assistant 3. And so that's going to probably have to change to an administrative analyst because we don't have any administrative assistants.
In what page? On my page, it shows...
It's page 130 of 132.
Okay. Mine says administrative analyst. I don't know if you got if the wrong copy was sent to you.
Well, in the first line, in the very first line, under the general supervision, mine still says it assistant on it.
I see. Okay, I was looking.
Yeah,
I thought
not
you were
a
saying
big deal,
responsible to.
but it just seems like since we've changed it all, you might as well make that one little simple change. Yep. And then also, I was the one that had asked for the 2014 grade step chart to be included in the handbook at the last meeting.
It's the very last page, page 132.
But actually, I went back and I looked, and I thought I was clearer, but those grades and steps are associated to a dollar amount, and that's what I was interested in, is the 2014 grade step chart including
there is the hourly rates are on the left-hand side all the way down. That's the chart we get from the state.
Okay, so you do have to do the math. Is what you're telling me.
Not really. It's just that all of those make the same. So, for example, if you look at the 1 second down.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but I'm just saying in order for me to determine what someone's annual rate is, I have to do the math on 2,080 hours times their...
That part you have to do, yeah.
I thought they did that for us.
No,
I've seen a chart.
I've seen the same chart. I mean, this is what we've used on other things, and it looks just like this. I always find it confusing because there's people that, like, for example, in a lower grade that can make the same and stuff, so sometimes there's weird things that way.
It would not be my choice of employee pay and how to analyze it and how to administer it, but it is the way that the state does it, and that's what we're going to...
And so... There isn't a annual form. There's not an annual chart. It's just an hourly chart.
There may be. I mean, I don't know every chart that the state puts out. This is kind of the HR chart that we use to determine people's pay.
Thank you.
Mr. Nixdorf, did you have something?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Oh, you're not finished yet.
Excuse me. Because I worked on this and read as much as I could. On this, I gave everybody what I would like to see changed, and were you able to review that? Did you see anything outrageous in there? I'm just wondering if you could incorporate that into the employee handbook.
Yeah, I thought that was the board.
It's not the board. The job description for the board members only.
Right, and the board members in particular are not. You're not employees.
Right, but
so you're not covered by the employee handbook.
Right, but you have in here something about our job as an employee, as a board member.
It's an appointed position by the governor, so we're not employees of the board. So it doesn't. This is only for right. That. But the one we'd have to do something completely separate to specify what a board member's
under the board best practices that you approved. I can actually bring that back if you want to discuss that. That more specifically talks about what the board members do. But this document, other than in cursory passing, just to let the employees know who a board member is or what they generally do. This does not regulate anything that a board member does.
Right, and that's what this is. What I've got here. It would have been page 83 and 84 in the book. I've ripped mine out and written all over it. That's all that little sheet that I gave you. That's all it was about. Is so if somebody was looking at it like a board member, somebody really looked what their job description was.
They shouldn't use this.
Yeah,
as their job.
But this is an employee manual for the state board.
The Attorney General's office publishes a manual. It's called the Boards and Commissions Manual, and there's a link to it on our website. And I believe you've all been given it before. And that has information about what a board member should do, board member responsibilities, that kind of thing.
I just thought after reading it, this is what I put in there. So if you could look at that, maybe we could bring that back up to look at because
I'm
I
just
think
saying.
it was very well
I
written.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't put any credence on anything that I've said on as it relates to board members. It's very cursory, very high level, and it's only to inform the staff that board members exist. It's not for the staff shouldn't have contact with you.
Yeah, there should be no direct contact between employees and the
which we
board
call
members.
out in the manual.
Yeah.
A motion, please.
Just one last question, Mr. President. Will we be hiring for a deputy?
At some point in the future, yes. That's
When it's budgeted.
Yeah, it currently is budgeted. Just so you know, that was in the budget, and that was why we showed the layout and the people that are being both from a career training standpoint and where we're moving the organization. That is a future hire that's in the budget today.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll take that motion now, please.
All right, I move that we approve the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology Employee Handbook as is, with the one exception of page 130 under the executive summary where it says Administrative Assistant 3, and that should be just it's just a typo, it looks like, and it should be Administrative Analyst, correct? Correct. All right, so with that change made, we approve it as is, with the understanding for all the board members who have some objection that at any time, should somebody find something they want to change, they can come back to make those changes, as well as when the AG looks it over, and if they have any changes, that those will be taken up at a separate meeting. Otherwise, implement this.
Is there a second?
I will second that, and I really appreciate the effort that went into this because, I've been on the phone with you several times, and it means a great deal to me, Mr. Landry, and I really do think that it turned out awesome, so thank you.
Thank you.
Having a motion and a second before the board, is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll have that vote then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Now, the election of board officers.
Can I ask one question? Do we do the strategic update? Did you do that yet?
It wasn't pulled as far as the motion, but I can certainly discuss it.
It wasn't pulled, but it was part of the executive director's report.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't mind if you have a question about it.
I just had a couple little questions here. Again, I'd like to see it redlined because I'm reading this. What's that? I would like to see the changes redlined because I'm not sure on some of this stuff, like received excellent feedback from all testing candidates. This is SP4 and schools. Is that what you want to achieve? Was there anything that changed from last time to now? The last time we saw this report?
What you look at on the report, it gives you the theme. It gives the description never changes. That's the description on the strategic plan.
But the target,
the current status, tells you what we did this last month. The last 3 months before the board meeting. The next steps tells you what we're focusing on doing for the next, before the next, or during the time from now to the next board meeting. Not all of them may be accomplished, but I report to you each month on that. So,
could you redline the things that were accomplished so that I really can sit and because you'd like sometimes to say congratulations or great job, but
what I can do is I can put, when it says current status, I can put that in red because that is what we accomplished over the last board meeting. But that way it'll stand out a little more from the rest of the text. That's no problem.
That would kind of help me because I wasn't quite sure if you did some of these things. And it says tabulation and discussion of feedback is conducted in the weekly management meeting. But what was the feedback? Was it anything good? Was there something that?
Yeah, I'll need some direction from the entire board on what level of detail do you want to put in the executive director's report. I don't mind speaking on any issue to whatever depth you want to do. It's just how much do you want to put into the executive director's report?
Was the feedback positive? Or is there something we need to change? That's just something really simple, not a whole lot. But did the feedback tell us something we should be doing as a board?
If it did, I would report it, and I would put it in your weekly report.
If it's important, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
So if you could just read that for me, that would be so wonderful.
That's
Thank you.
No problem at all.
Anybody else? Okay. Agenda item, well, it was 19. It's probably 20 now, even though I've tried to get it 3 or 4 times. Election of officers for fiscal year 2015.
Are any board members interested in being an officer that is particular or maintaining their current positions? Everybody,
I'd like to say that I, for one, have had a lovely time being president of the board, but I would like to step aside and let somebody else take the reins and try it.
Didn't we elect Perry to step up?
Well, Perry's the vice president, I'm the president, and April's the secretary-treasurer, which is a combined position. So at any point, if anybody wants to nominate someone for the position of president, that would definitely...
I'd like to nominate Perry, and then I'd like to nominate April for assistant.
You mean vice?
Vice.
Okay.
So what you're saying, Neil, is you're okay with...
I'm absolutely okay with stepping aside.
I want you to know, I think you did a great job this year.
I do too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd probably be more likely to give a smart aleck comment than actually anything of worthwhile to the board, but what can I say?
I appreciate you recognizing how smart I am, though, when you said smart Alex.
Oh. No X on that, by the way.
So while I really wasn't... I thought that you would go for re-election and that we could revote for you.
You don't necessarily have to take the nomination that's been proposed for you.
I'd be willing to accept that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, well, I could actually nominate a competitor, so you have a competition. I could nominate Ms. Long for president.
There we go. Then we could compete.
And then that way, the two of you guys could
I got the time.
could battle over the
I
position.
don't have so much time, so
Okay. Well, then that could definitely be something to consider with regards to what's the best moving forward for the board. If Ms. Long has the time and you don't,
well, how much time do you spend on this outside of board meetings?
I am generally in the office every 2 weeks signing checks. If there's anything else that comes up that I need to be informed of, I am. It's a little bit more of a commitment that I initially had anticipated with regards to what I do for the board. So I was willing to do it. I think I did as best as could be hoped. And
a great job. Great job.
Yes, really a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I guess it's all relative. There is several times a month where you're probably going to be required to go into the board office, or either that, just based on the way the financials work, you're signing checks every 2 weeks. So as a board president, if you're not able to get into the office, then they're either going to be bringing it to you or shipping it to you. So it's either an additional expense to the board or time and effort that an employee is going to be doing as opposed to what they're hired for.
And April, you spend a fair amount of time already, right?
Yeah, and I have established relationships with not only Mr. Landry quite often. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have established relationships with, there at the office with Mr. Landry. Of course, I've gotten to know Andrew very well, and of course the rest of the office staff there. I'm there quite a bit. So, and if they need me there at the last second, I'm minutes away.
And who are we thinking might replace you?
I was thinking, it depends where you want your signer. If you want your signer up in Reno, I thought Ms. Benaldi. If you want it in, if you want it here if you want it in Vegas, Ms. Booth. So it just depends where you want your signer.
I kind of like the idea that there's somebody up north and somebody up south for the signing. And
well, I could sign in the south
because
I'll be there anyway. If you want it in the north, then Ms. Benaldi would be, unless. A wonderful choice.
And Ms. Benaldi, would you be willing to accept that position?
Ms. Benaldi?
How much time are you spending?
Once every 2 weeks.
How long do you think that takes?
About 40 minutes, not even.
20 minutes. It's
Maybe.
the time in and out of
Quick,
the office, though.
Can I do it on a Tuesday?
Yes.
That's generally when we're...
You know what? You
Tuesday,
can...
At 7 a.m.
Me and Andrew have put our heads together a little bit, and we are right now kind of flexible. We're going to be kind of changing the dates around. So however you want to do it, I'm happy to work with you on dates. Absolutely fine.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Benaldi for the secretary-treasurer.
I'll second.
Okay, so just so we're clear, what we're looking at is Ms. Long as the president, Mr. Nixdorf remaining as vice, and then Ms. Benaldi as secretary-treasurer.
I vote for that.
I like that Mr. Nixdorf is going to maintain his position as an elected officer, and I would nominate Mr. Nixdorf as vice president.
I'll second.
Okay, so I believe we need a motion and then a vote, and we can.
I'll make the motion to have a slate of officers, absent any other nominations for these positions, as Jeanette Benaldi for Secretary Treasurer, Perry Nixdorf, Vice President, and April Long as President for 2014-2015, a slate of officers.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second before the board, is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain that vote, though. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries.
Congratulations, Missy.
So I'll move the gavel over here. So agenda item number 20, NIC voting. Mr. Landry.
Yes, this is just in case there have been some scheduling conflicts with board member, now President Long, being able to coordinate and get to Nick and potentially not be able to stay for the entire time. So what I found out from the Nick board is if we wish to vote, I can't vote unless I'm authorized by the board for that one specific meeting in the absence of another voting board member.
I was originally committed to go to Nick. I may have to be in court that day, so if I have to pull out of it, we need to be able to authorize.
I propose
Mr.
a
Landry.
motion that we allow Mr. Landry to vote in the absence of any board members for any NIC conferences.
I second.
That's a pretty blanket statement. You said any.
For this conference.
Okay,
For
so I'd
this
like to say
conference.
this.
No, actually, I mean, yeah,
Conference, yes.
yeah.
Second.
You're not going to pull any stunts, are you?
What do you think he's going to
Come back and
do?
report. Yeah, the votes at Nick, that are typically required would be things like hosting the conference. So we will definitely be able to maintain our vote for for bringing it to Nevada. But sometimes there are subcommittee rules and changes they're doing. It's typically not a contentious thing. It's also voting for the slate of officers for Nick. So having your voice and the board represented is just something that Nick actually contacted me about that this week.
So my motion was to allow Mr. Landry to vote in the best interest of the board.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion, since I guess I'm still president till the end of the meeting? Okay, I'll entertain that vote then. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item 21, future agenda items. Mr. Nixdorf, I know you were right on deck with something we had going on, yes?
Well, with Koki here, let's put the formation of a subcommittee meeting.
Well, I think we've got to bring, what I would like to propose is
Yes.
that at our next meeting, because we can't do it now, that we put it on the agenda to form the committee. And I also would like to put on at the same time that we work at writing a policy for the termination of a director and also a policy on the, what did I say, Mr. We want to do the termination and the
Yeah, what I would say is you could make it more like an HR subcommittee that would cover all things. So you've got a hiring policy now, you need a termination policy, and then a goal setting policy.
Right.
So that when would you set the goals, who would be involved in it, all that type of stuff. That way it's kind of the hiring, the firing, and what you do from an ongoing standpoint. Would kind of round out all the direction that I would need from the board in a policy. So it would be set, and you'd know what when it would be coming up, what your input, when to get your input in, and then we'd have a formalized discussion probably at the May meeting prior to the fiscal year. So we would set for the next fiscal year at the May meeting, we'd set the goals that you would wish myself and staff to accomplish for the next fiscal year. And just put in a more formalized policy.
So let's make the subcommittee the HR subcommittee. And whatever
I agree.
falls in that.
Okay.
Mr.
So I'd like
Landry.
to put that on the agenda.
So
to do an
future
HR
agenda
committee.
items.
Mr. Landry, the idea of terminating the executive director doesn't sit well with me. Is there a way that, at all, is there a way we could
say it
say
nicely?
administrative leave?
There you go.
Seeking other opportunities.
Right.
And I think Ms. Tran has one that she wanted to put on the agenda too for next time.
Just asking about the where the Credo blade is banned from using, but now people are using the cheese grater.
People are using cheese graters on their feet?
Yes.
Nachos.
So
yes,
Wow.
the actual cheese
She
graters.
just wanted to bring that to the next board meeting for discussion.
No, these are actually cheese graters that they're using to,
They're even, they're being sold
I
in
just
beauty
wanted to-
supplies now too.
Okay, so
it's just,
I think that the
how
whole
long does it
agenda
take to
item. I'm sorry.
Somebody get hurt before it comes to the board.
Well, and I think the whole proposed agenda item should be not only a discussion about how, and I don't know why anybody would want to use a cheese grater on their foot, but not only that, but then also why a Credo blade can be in a salon but still not used, because that to
Correct.
me seems just dumber than dumb.
I can actually answer that right now if you want to take 2 minutes. One is we're not allowed to ban. That's one of the changes we're asking in the law, to actually ban devices. The way the law is currently written, you cannot use a Credo blade. So because
So they have to be caught first.
The inspector has to see them with Credo blade in hand and using it on a client to be able to cite them. That's going to change with the new law if we get it through the legislature, where we ban a device. That device will not be allowed anywhere except the retail part to be sold and taken out of the establishment. There can be anything that the board will ban from that point forward will not be allowed at the workstations.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? Okay. Now is the final opportunity for anybody from the public. We have an empty seating arrangement over here in Carson City. How about you guys down in Vegas? Is there anybody there that wants to step forward and make public comment? Anybody at all? No? Nobody there. Okay.
Well,
Agenda.
Prior to the close, I did want to just congratulate you, Neil. The last year has been a real pleasure to have you run the meetings and very professionally, and I just thought you did a really great job.
You've not been paying attention. Very professionally?
Yes,
really?
he has.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so having nothing further at... The time is 1:03. I'm going to call this meeting to close on August 4th, 2014. Thank you.